Councillor Carbone Mangan. Councillor Corkery. Councillor Dennison. Councillor Dockrell. Councillor Donnelly. Apologies, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Gearan. Councillor Hannafy. Councillor Haughey. Councillor Healy. Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Johnston. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kitt. Councillor Leddy. Councillor Maguire. Councillor McCamley. Councillor McDonough. Councillor Mulligan. Councillor Mulville. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newman. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Leary.
Here.
Councillor O'Numera. Councillor Quinlan. Councillor Quinn. Councillor Redwood. Apologies, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Sheehan. Councillor Shovlin. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tormey. Councillor Troy. Councillor Walsh.
Okay. So all mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note this meeting has been webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you finish speaking. All members are reminded that the chamber is non-smoking vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 92 that all members are bound to act in accordance with the Ethics Framework and Code of Conduct for Local Authority members to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings, direction of the Mayor in a manner that is respectful of colleagues. Members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting, and any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matters of subject of today's agenda should now disclose same. Councillors are also reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute improper motives or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words and not explaining or retracting same or offering apologies for the use thereof when requested by the Mayor to do so shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable. I have apologies from Councillor Brendan Ryan and Councillor Luke Corkery. I've had an emergency motion and I've had to rule it out of order, and that's been communicated to the proposer. So can I get a confirmation and reaffirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 7th of July 2025 proposed? Seconded by Kieran Dennison, proposed by Councillor O'Leary. And then we go on to item number 2, where we're taking nominations, the appointment of 2 members of the Regional Health Forum, Dublin North East. I go to Mayor Egan to read out the report. Mayor Egan.
Right, Mayor, I'm just going to summarise the report. The Department of Health undertook an analysis to determine how many councillors and from which councils should sit on each of the health forums, and to account for population increases, 1 additional representative was added for every 50,000 increase in population at a local authority level between the years 2002 to 22. And under these proposals, the membership of Fingal County Council will increase to 8, and currently we have 6, so therefore 2 additional Fingal County Council nominees are now required to the Regional Health Forum, Dublin North East. And the 6 councillors that are currently on the health forum are Councillor Tormey, Kitt, Dennison, McCamley, Carbone Mangan and O'Leary. Thank you.
Okay, so have we any, James Humphreys. Councillor James Humphreys, yes.
We've had a letter from the 27th of May asking us to nominate 2 people to a Dublin City working group on the hotel tax. That letter came in on the 27th of May. I propose that we actually, seeing that we're nominating people to outside bodies, that should be dealt with now. And I think the easiest way of doing it is I have a motion to bring that forward that would allow us to nominate 2 people.
I think we'll deal with that when we get to your motion. If we get to, well, hopefully we'll get to your motion, and I will consider varying the agenda to get to the motion, because I think we have to get to it because of the issue you just raised. We'll see. Okay. So, Malachy Quinn.
I nominate my colleague, Councillor John Smith, please. Thank you.
And seconded by Angela Donnelly. Have we any? Yes?
Can I nominate myself?
Oh, I think so. Can you? Yes? Yes, and seconded by Jared Sheehan. That's 2. Anyone else? That's it. So we have 2 before us. Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay. Congratulations. Well done. Okay. Yes, Candy.
That if you nominate yourself to go to this, would you go to it? Because myself, I think you appeared as well, and Councillor Kieran Dennison. That's the only time I ever saw anybody at it.
Yeah.
So if you're putting your name forward, try and get there.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to HSC, do you know?
Yeah, it's available. It's available via hybrid and in person. So I usually do hybrid online. Thank you. So we go to questions. Questions number 3 to 17, proposed by me and seconded by Jimmy Gearan. And then we go to the report of the committees. So we've 18A, report of the CPG committee meeting on Monday, the 1st of September. Proposed by Kieran Dennison, seconded by Councillor Owen O'Brien. A report of BMCO services, BA, what's that? Where am I now? What's BMCO? It's Balbriggan. Sorry, I'll go back to the right of the agenda. Where am I here? Where is it there? All right, Blanchardstown. Is it Blanchardstown? Right, okay. Report of Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, Castleknock, Ongar Services Area B Committee held on the Thursday, 4th of September, proposed by Councillor Shovlin, seconded by Councillor Tom Kitt. That's that one done. So we go on to financial matters, no business. And then disposal of properties, we're on item number 20. 20A, notice of proposed disposal of land, grant of way leave at Baldoyle Racecourse, Baldoyle, County Dublin, proposed by anyone? Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor, I've forgotten your name. Sorry. Carboni Mangan, sorry, apologies. And then we go on to 20B, notice of proposed disposal of land and grant of way leave at Carduff Community Resource Centre, Black Court Road, Carduff, Dublin 15 to ESB Networks, proposed by Councillor Hannafy, seconded by Mary McCanley. Councillor McCanley. Okay, that's that. Right. So we're into declaration of roads, number 21. So 21A, Dun Sockley Way, Finglas, proposed by, these proposed, yes? Proposed by, sorry, who's that? Mary McCanley, seconded by JK Onamwera. And then we go into 21B, Hansfield Phase 2, Fibblestown, Dublin 15, proposed by Councillor Dennison, seconded by Councillor Tom Kitt and Councillor Boland. Have you? So, Councillor Boland here has indicated to speak, and Councillor Boland wants to move an amendment. So you have the floor, Councillor Boland.
The amendment is to give control of cul-de-sac junctions back to the people. Currently, the situation is that when an estate is taken in charge, the control of the roadway falls to the gift of the Chief Executive. We recently had an experience in Rush which brought this to my attention, that after 30 years of a safe environment, safe for the residents, amongst who were handicapped people who enjoyed the confidence of their neighbours to allow them to go and wander along the roads without any fear of accidents, etc. This House, through the Chief Executive, gave permission for that cul-de-sac protection to be taken away and expose these vulnerable people to serious danger, to allow hundreds of people traverse Brookfield Estate. Now I'm putting the amendment to be very simple going forward. That the amount of roadway which would be taken in charge at the cul-de-sac would be reduced by 2 metres. Going forward, can't help Brookfield. Manager could have helped, but decided not to. She decided to sit on her hands. But this is proactive. This is in the interests of people going forward. Imagine after 30 years living in the false belief that you were secure within a cul-de-sac, that your kids could go out and play, that your neighbours who were disabled could go and be let out the door without any great fear of an accident. That isn't the Fingal that I've ever believed in. And it's not one that I can let slip idly past my hand now that I know the danger which the Chief Executive presents to the safety of people and their security of their houses and their roadways. Thank you. I'll give you a copy of the amendment.
Okay, Councillor Owen O'Brien. Oh, yes. Did somebody second that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Quinn. We'll just wait, Owen, just for a second. Yeah, Councillor Jimmy Kieran, point of order before we bring in Councillor Owen O'Brien. Where's he gone?
Thanks, and I have the greatest respect for the way Councillor Boland presents things to the House, but I think the contributions and the comments made in relation to specifically the Chief Executive should be withdrawn. I think they were inappropriate in the circumstances.
Okay, well, it's up to the Councillor. So, Councillor Owen O'Brien, do you want to make a contribution to this?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And without visibility of the motion, look, Councillor Boland made a contribution there that I think I would just like to contest in terms of his comments regarding the Chief Executive, and somebody who, in various roles over the years in this council, many of us have worked with for a long, long time. And I don't think it's a fair representation, the way Councillor Boland put it. The Chief Executive is not a person that sits on our hands. My understanding of the issue that Councillor Boland raises is that there were planning permissions and appeals to Bord Pleanála, and due process was gone through. That might not be the most popular thing for me to say, or it might not be what the residents out there want to hear, but I think that was a grossly unfair statement made by Councillor Boland that doesn't reflect certainly my knowledge and years of work in various roles with Anne-Marie Farrelly in this council, and I think those comments should be withdrawn. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'll make comment afterwards. I have 2 more speakers here. So, Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Yeah, I can see Councillor Boland's point of view. I disagree with some of the words he used, particularly the word handicapped. It's not appropriate in this day and age. I don't even want to issue it myself, but I just think that word isn't appropriate in disabled persons or specific physical, intellectual, or whatever disability a person may have is more specific. That word is just not appropriate. With regards to the motion itself, if you look up the National Planning Framework, the Design Manual for Urban Roads, or the Fingal Development Plan, it goes, whilst I always argue it, and Mr. Story would always tell you about my arguments regards access and egress to estates, and we have an issue here in Swords ourselves, but the reality is the National Planning Framework talks about compact growth and talks about permeability and talks about opening areas that have cul-de-sacs up for walking and cycling infrastructure. Whether we disagree or don't disagree, it's not something that this council has ownership of, because it's national guidance now in terms of compact growth. My opinion is not the most pertinent thing here, but the National Planning Framework was only reviewed last year in the summer. Was it last year? Yeah, in the summer, and it was spelled out clearly to my frustration in many instances that this one-size-fits-all solution is used in new developments that, you know, you are letting people in, but the law is the law and the rules are the rules, whether we like them or not. The planning authority aren't going to overturn them. The design standards require safe surveillance, so no hidden backways like cul-de-sacs and stuff like that. But it is an appropriate active travel measure, and it's been carried out in all areas bar none across the county. If we want to tackle it as a council, it won't be in isolated motions like this, but it is part of the guidance documents under the planning guidelines which we are governed under at this moment in time.
Okay, Councillor Darragh. Yeah, go ahead.
At the start of every meeting, Mayor, you read out guidelines which you ask us all to adhere to.
Yes.
Now, 2 members have asked for specific comments to be withdrawn, and they should either be withdrawn before this debate proceeds. I think it is very wrong to allow the debate continue without correcting the serious allegations that were made against our Chief Executive, which most members know to be untrue. You owe that to the members on the basis of what you read in at the start of meetings.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so well, speaking for myself, I wouldn't agree with the commentary or some of the words that Councillor Boland said about the Chief Executive. It's not my experience of the Chief Executive, Anne-Marie Farley, who's sitting beside me here. I've always found her to be fair and reasonable. I do understand the frustration, but I wouldn't use those strong words that were used by Councillor Cathal Boland. And I don't know if he wants to consider withdrawing the words or not. I'm putting it to the councillor now if he wants to reconsider the words he said. Thank you.
I'd like to say I have, and I won't. Thank you.
Okay, so right, that's where it is. So we'll go on to Councillor Darragh Butler. Yes.
Each meeting, if it's something that you're only joking, that's fine. That if somebody's asked to withdraw comments and they refuse to withdraw them, you ask them again and then you ask them to remove themselves.
No,
either do it or don't.
Yes, I've asked him to reconsider. I did not ask him to withdraw. Reconsider his comments, and he's refusing to withdraw them. I have not asked him to withdraw the comments, and I'm not going to continue this. He said the comments. It's his view he won't withdraw them, and I'm leaving it at that. Okay, so who have I next? Councillor Butler.
Yeah, look, whatever we all feel about Brookfield, I'm just, like, this is obviously Avondale Court, Mulhutter, it's totally different area, so, like, yeah, kind of bringing in a rule that's going to impact loads of other estates, so we're obviously going to have to hear from the manager now before anyone votes on this, and we're going to have to see maps and see the impact that this would have on this and any other taking in charge. So yeah, I don't see how this is coming in. Something because of one area is now going to try and impact somewhere on the other end of the county. So yeah, I'd like to hear from the Chief Executive or the appropriate director on this. Thanks.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I confess to being a little bit mystified. I can understand some of the concerns Councillor Boland has, but if I'm understanding what he's proposing correctly, it's to apply this reduction in cul-de-sacs to Avondale Court, Mulhutter, and presumably to each of the other proposals for declaration of roads that are before us. And with respect to Councillor Boland, that's crazy policy making. That's not the way to put through changes. I agree with what Councillor Mulligan said. I don't think we can simply adopt changes in an arbitrary way to Mulhutter, to Hansfield, to areas across the county without any discussion or consultation, and possibly in defiance of national and local guidelines. So I wouldn't be in favour of it. And just note as well that the comments that Councillor Boland made, in my view, are completely wrong in relation to the Chief Executive, and they certainly don't reflect my experience of dealing with the Chief Executive. Those comments, in my view, are not appropriate. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor J.K. Onamwera.
Thank you, Mayor. I personally have a huge issue with trying to use Avondale Court or the item in front of us as a yardstick for Councillor Boland's reasoning, to call for the changes he has. I believe that councillors from Muhodat Blanchardstown would also be disgusted, considering the language that was used to make that presentation. And I do agree with Councillor Walsh that perhaps Councillor Boland was using it as a yardstick, but nevertheless, residents of Avondale Court would be mystified. They would be actually, not happy that, their estate is being used as a yardstick for this particular example that is being cited. And in my personal opinion, Councillor Boland probably has a case, if a cul-de-sac has been opened up and, there are consequences that are not palatable to residents. That can be dealt with separately rather than, a broad stroke approach that he is applying. And personally, I take exception to Avondale Court, and I want to agree that other councillors from the Muhoda Blanchardstown area who are seated here would be absolutely not happy that, that particular estate or the entirety of Dublin 15, Muhoda Blanchardstown would be used as an example for the case he is putting forward. And I personally also take exception to the language that was used in presenting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Malachy-Quinn.
I firstly want to distance myself from the comments from Councillor Boland, and it's regrettable that he hasn't withdrawn them comments. But my idea behind supporting the motion is to open up a discussion and to allow a discussion on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Evie Tormey.
Thank you, and I think Councillor Boland should reflect on his comments and withdraw them. Certainly, in all my dealings with the Chief Executive, I think to say that she isn't putting safety first is just incorrect. And I think, I've spoken to Councillor Boland on the issue that he has, but it is a separate issue, and I think it's baffling. But I can understand from his frustration. But this is not the realm for this. If my understanding is correct, he's trying to reduce a cul-de-sac so that 2 meters are left, and it's just not practical. Like, if there's road repairs needed on that, like, the council needs to have those in charge in order to be able to do that. So there is a practical element to that, and there's 2 apartment blocks beside that, so I think he's just trying to make a point. It's really unfortunate that Councillor Quinn decided to second this to even get onto the floor, because I just think this is completely inappropriate and it should be voted down ASAP. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor John Burchell.
Yeah, I have sympathy for the Brookfield residents in question there. Read some of the emails. And I'd give Councillor Boland the benefit of the doubt of the use of that inappropriate word. It should have been people with disability. But really, it's pretty opportunistic to use Avondale Court. The residents would be entirely bemused that Councillor Boland was so interested in the length of their cul-de-sac. It'd be very hard to explain it to them. Really, the motion shouldn't really be here. There's better mechanisms that should have been used, and I'd echo Councillor JK's comments there that, the councillors and residents, the councillors representing the Blanche Mulhuddard ward and the residents of Avondale wouldn't be too happy with this kind of opportunistic hijacking of what should be a very quick approval. Thanks.
Councillor Breda Hannafy.
And I don't know, has he spoken to the residents in Avondale Court and Avondale Place? As Councillor JK and John Burchell said, this was agreed at our local area meeting. We were speaking on behalf of the residents, and I don't think it is terrible what's been happening in Brookfield, but I don't think there's a comparison between Avondale Court and Avondale Park as Brookfield, and I just hope it doesn't interfere with what's going to happen. And again, Enhancedfield is going to interfere with taking in charge of them. Thank you.
Okay, right. So I just want to repeat again that I do not agree with the comments made by Councillor Boland regarding the Chief Executive. Now, we have a proposer and seconder. We were on B, Hansfield Phase 2, and we've been discussing Avondale Court. And if that's to move, it needs to be proposed and seconded. So, Councillor Boland, we're at B, Hansfield and the room. Hansfield Phase 2, you have moved an amendment. The next one hasn't been moved yet, or proposed and moved. So, will we deal with B first, or do you want to? I don't know if anyone you will propose D, and who will second it? Yes. Do you want to? Before you come back in, Chief Executive would like to say a few words, Councillor, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Councillor, Chief Executive, sorry, I should have asked you.
Thanks, Mayor, and just the normal executive right of reply, and I know Mr McAleese will come in just with the technical effect of this motion or indeed the one dealing with Hansfield. Just from my own perspective, I think just to clarify matters, residents in Brookfield have been querying the fact that this public road was going to benefit or be used to the benefit of a development that's under construction. And it's been clarified to the residents and to members indeed that the permitted development proposed the use of this public road for their for access to the development that's under construction. The issues that are being raised currently by residents and others were raised during that planning process. The matter was subject to an appeal to An Bord Pleanála, and An Bord Pleanála decided to permit the development in line with as it was applied for, with the use of this public road as the access to the development. In terms of the personalised nature of I suppose, what has been a campaign in the last 2 months, including, I suppose, a lot of WhatsApp and text messages to my phone, which is fine. It's a council phone, just to be clear on that. And I'm certainly not looking for sympathy, but some of them, I would say, were inappropriate and not something that I would support as being used in a campaign against on any matter to members of staff. So had the same messages been going to members of staff, I certainly would have acted upon it. So what I've done with, in terms of, I've chosen not to reply using those methods of communication because the messages themselves were inappropriate in terms of how they were phrased for the most part, although there were 1 or 2 reasonable approaches within those messages. However, people have been replied to through email and through letter where that has been, where contact details were available. So in terms of my control over this access to the new development, it's very limited. The development is permitted with 1 access through the public road. I'm not in a position to change that. I did over the previous months undertake to just have a look at the area and see was there a suitable alternative access, and the conclusion that was reached that there is not. So ultimately the decision stands, and if an alternative access were identified, it in itself would need planning, and that would be subject to an application to Fingal County Council, and appeal if appropriate to the board if there are submissions in relation to it. So in terms of the personalised nature of that this has become, I don't think it's appropriate. I'm well able to deal with it, but it's not an approach I think is suitable for any campaign against the council. The effect of this motion, as I understand it, would be to create no man's land, because bearing in mind the control of cul-de-sacs in estates that are not taken in charge rests with the landowner and the developer. But I'll ask Mr McAleese to come in on that.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. The council's obviously gone through a process with the developer to bring this estate up to taken in charge standards. It's before you this evening. If the motion was passed, we would have to withdraw Avondale Park from the agenda, and obviously we would have to then begin that process again. The taken in charge maps have been out on public display. So if there was a change to those, we would have to go back to the developer. It's the developer that puts the TIC forward and indicates what lands he wishes for the council to be taken in charge. So again, we would have to go back to the developer and discuss that. And obviously, as the Chief Executive has pointed out, that would create a no man's land. So it certainly wouldn't, I can't imagine it would be in his benefit to create no man's lands within the estates that he would be responsible for, and the council wouldn't. And as Councillor Tormey said, there is a very practical knock-on effect to that, the council wouldn't be able to maintain those pieces of land either. So look, that's just the consequences of passing the motion this evening.
Okay, so we'll go back to Councillor Boland.
Reality is that the motion was put down for the future, not the past. It was to protect residents who live in cul-de-sacs or who buy property in cul-de-sacs, that they could be assured that they were living in a cul-de-sac and not in a through road servicing many more houses than the estate they were living in was built for. I don't think that it's unreasonable. In fact, I pointed out to the Chief Executive that somewhere in the 1980s, my good friend and colleague, Councillor Farrell, proposed a similar motion successfully in the old Dublin County Council. And the cul-de-sac survives and exists and doesn't cause any great difficulty. Just simply means that people's expectation is delivered on. The issue with regard to Brookfield isn't one that they were endeavouring to prevent through movement. They were endeavouring to prevent motorised through movement in terms of cars, trucks, buses, lorries. But they had no difficulty with people coming through on bicycles or walking. I really am extremely distressed, upset by the actions of the executive of this council in respect of this matter. I think that it was badly handled from the beginning. It ignored the policies which had been set out for 20-odd years by this council in terms of the LAP for Rush, which was simply overturned with the stroke of a pen. I don't think that's how we should do business. And I would hope that in the future, the people have the good sense to elect councillors who are committed to looking after their needs and their wishes are taken fully into account. Long live democracy.
Okay, so we have 21B before us. We have an amendment. It's Hansfield up there. That has been proposed and seconded. What does the room want to do with it? Or the councillor? What's the councillor want to do with it? Do you want to go to a vote, councillor? The amendment isn't agreed? Amendment is not agreed, is that correct? Okay, amendment isn't agreed, so the proposal, so we go for 21B, we're still on it. We're approving 21B as proposed by the executive, correct? Yes? Yes, as before us. Yes? Yes? And then we're going on to 21C, which is Avondale Park. Do I need proposals? Yes. I need a proposal and second. Proposed by Councillor Dennehan, seconded by Councillor McCamley. And then I've got 21D, Avondale Court, Mulhuddard. Proposed by Councillor McCamley and seconded by J.K. Onamwera. And then I've got 21E, Balroy Hall, Castleknock, Dublin 15, proposed by John Walsh. Anyone? Seconded by Councillor Carboni. Mangan. Sorry, that name just won't stick. Thank you. Okay, right, great. Right, so we move on to the next item. and which is, sorry? What? Which motion? Yeah, yeah. The individual ones, yeah. Yeah. These here. Only the first one, and the second one didn't move it. Okay, Councillor Boland, are you moving the second? Oh, we've already done all these now. Right, okay, Grant. That amendment has not been moved. All right, we're on to number 22, Presidential Election Special Meeting, report from Mary Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. And the report in the pack refers to the special meeting which the Mayor has called for next Friday, the 12th, to deal with nominations for the presidential election 2025, and the proposal that this special meeting will be held, there will be a hybrid option for councillors for that meeting. And then I propose to just quickly go through the nominations process, just for all councillors. So a fairly brief presentation there. So as you all know, the local authority may nominate one presidential candidate. Candidate must be an Irish citizen, aged 35 or older, and the timelines as set out were the election order was signed by the Minister on the 3rd of September. The latest date for receipt of nominations by the returning officer is the 24th of September at noon, and the election day is the 24th of October. And as I just said, the Mayor has called a special meeting to consider the nominations, which will be held on the 12th of September, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And just our nominations process here in Fingal is potential candidates and applicants must secure the sponsorship of 4 of the elected members before being invited and allowed to address the council at the special meeting. Eligible potential candidates and applicants must present in person, albeit that the meeting is hybrid for councillors. The potential candidates must present in person, and only those who have addressed the council in person can be nominated by the council. And that's all in our own standing orders. I just put the references in there into the presentation. At the CPG last Monday, they recommended, as I said, that the meeting will be hybrid for councillors. And if hybrid is approved, it is only councillors who can attend remotely. Sorry, I've outlined that already. And then voting during the special meeting will be by roll call vote only, as we will have, well, assuming we will have some councillors coming in remotely, so it will be a roll call vote. So the procedure, to date, all potential candidates or applicants that have contacted us have been circulated with our process, and they've been requested to submit their documentation by midnight tomorrow, midnight on Tuesday the 9th. And all their documentation is proof of their citizenship and their age, and also a presentation to be made at full council, not to exceed 900 words, and most importantly, the 4 nominations or the sponsorship of the 4 councillors, so evidence of the sponsorship of the 4 councillors. Once all that has been verified, we will send all of that information to yourselves, hopefully on Wednesday. And then speaking times will be determined by the number of applicants. Our standing orders say that it will be a maximum of 15 minutes per applicant, but if we have a good number of applicants, then it will be much less than that. And then the applicants, they must be proposed and seconded. Voting will be by a process of elimination. And then the final resolution to determine if Fingal County Council is putting forward a nomination as candidate in the presidential election. So therefore, that means we will eliminate as we go along, and then when we come down to one candidate remaining, that candidate is formally proposed and seconded, and resolution is voted on to that candidate be the nominee from Fingal County Council. And those are just a list of, sorry, in the next slide, a list of the candidates that have contacted us to date. I believe there may be others aware of the process. Obviously, it's on our website, and haven't made contact with us, but those are the ones that we know of so far. So that was just a very quick whistle-stop tour. All of the details are on our website in relation to candidates and what they need to do to get to present to yourselves, and then with the potential of being nominated. So I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, I have 4 speakers here. So at this meeting, we need to agree or not agree for a hybrid meeting for this special meeting. So I'll go to Councillor Jimmy Kieran.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. You're actually raising the very point that I was going to bring up, which is the hybrid. Is this us now saying that going forward after this, all council meetings will be hybrid? That we'll have that option? Because my understanding was full council meetings were not to be hybrid. Yes, committees and yes, groups. Now, if we're doing it for all council meetings, happy days. But I don't see how we can pick and cut our cloth to suit. If it's a full council meeting, surely normal rules apply. And I would be opposed to it being a hybrid meeting on that basis. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Darragh Butler.
Yeah, I don't have a candidate in mind or that I'm supporting just before I say this, but I do think I personally think the rules on someone running for president are too strict. I think it should be maybe 10 Oireachtas members. You know, there's obviously candidates we don't want running, but I do think overall there could be, we're having our meeting here on Friday. There could be a meeting in Donegal and there could be a meeting in Cork at the same time. I think it's very strict of us to expect a candidate to have to be in the room. Great, if there's no other meeting, they should be. But if they're trying to juggle, as I said, it's very, very hard for a candidate either to get 20 Oireachtas members or 4 county councils. And now we're telling them, well, sorry, you have to be in this room. And if there's, I don't know, 3 or 4 other councils all meeting at the same time, automatically they're casting 3 of them aside to pick the one they go to. So, you know, ideally the candidates should be here on Friday, but I do think we should give them the option of dialing in if needs be. You know, we don't want people having to put themselves at risk. I think the same with the Shannon elections. Crazy people putting themselves at risk driving all over the country in the middle of the night, dark evenings, etc. I think we should afford it to the candidates to be able to dial in if necessary as well. Thank you.
Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, on the corporate policy group, I was, you know, in favour of this motion to maybe have it hybrid for both candidates and for councillors. However, with the delegation from the Fine Gael telling their candidates not to support anybody else and possibly Fianna Fáil following suit, I think it's an insult to democracy there, and we should, you know, maybe make the Fine Gael candidates or whoever come in here to give their opinion or their vote, instead of making it as easy for them. And I suppose in that regard, by making it harder for independent councillors to put themselves forward, I just think it's a bit of an insult to democracy. Thanks.
Councillor Ted Leddy.
Thank you. I suppose just to briefly address Councillor Newman's comments there, and many people have said it online and elsewhere. You know, I will be voting on Friday. I'll be voting in favour of my own party. I choose. That's my motivation. That's why I'll be choosing. How it's undemocratic to vote, you know, to stick with your party and vote against somebody who you don't think is suitable on the ballot. I don't see what's undemocratic about that. But what I wanted to raise was just the, you know, obviously the criteria, as we all know, is being a citizen and being over 35, but presumably another criteria is also being a human being. I think number 6 on the list there was a joke or a mock candidate, so I'm just kind of curious as to why it has not been picked up at this stage and why it's still on the list. Thank you.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of questions, actually. Ms. Egan was saying the voting would be by a process of elimination. So I presume that's a process of elimination where the lowest placed candidate is eliminated in turn. Is it possible to vote for none of the above, to vote for none of the the candidates if people want to exercise their right to do that, or do people who don't wish to vote and haven't made a final decision on how I'm voting? Well, I know who I'm not voting for. Let's put it that way. But is the only way to refuse to vote for a candidate to reject the final resolution? I think it would be useful to know that. And I want to congratulate Mr. Barry Wheely Rowe on his ingenuity in making it this far in the process, since he seems to be a bin.
Okay, Councillor John Burchell.
Yeah. So, just a question as well. A candidate needs 4 councillors to nominate them. Has anybody, crossed that hurdle yet? And what's the deadline for that? I mean, is that Wednesday? So is there potential that we would have no nominated candidates by Friday, and the meeting will be cancelled? Or, have any of the candidates gotten their 4 nominations? Yeah, that's it.
Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks, and it's similar to Councillor Walsh's. It's just the process of elimination. If only one candidate gets 4 sponsors, are they deemed the council's nominee? It's just or is it a vote at the end that everybody has to agree that candidate as the council's nominee? Thank you.
Councillor Owen O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to reassure Councillor Newman that in all my years as a public representative, Mount Street has never told me what way to vote one way or the other. I can't speak for other parties, but certainly our constitutional role in terms of the candidate selection process for the job of Uachtaráin na hÉireann is an important one. I'd see it as much as a vetting process that's there, and certainly if I'm able to make the meeting on Friday, I will be making up my mind on the calibre of candidate that's before us, and whether any individual, whether I would vote for them in an election myself or not, would be suitable to stand in that race and would bring something to that race. And that's the way I'll be approaching it. I'm sure other colleagues in Fianna Fáil will do likewise, and some may do differently, but Councillor Newman can rest assured Mount Street never told me which way to vote, and they're not going to start. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Cahill.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think the requiring 4 nominations is definitely a good idea, and I think other councils should follow suit. I saw a councillor on social media in Kerry today saying they had 14 potential candidates given a 5-minute presentation each, which I think you have to show some level of support within the council, and I totally disagree with what Councillor Newman said. It's not anti-democratic. I'm a Fianna Fáil councillor. I want the Fianna Fáil candidate to win, and I do not have any obligation to support any other candidate. Liverpool would not loan Mo Salah to Man United. That might sound ridiculous, but I do think it's similar. I have a right to support any candidate I want, and I do not have to facilitate any other candidate who I may disagree with getting on the pitch. Thanks.
Councillor James Humphreys.
Just per Councillor Newman is getting me bet upon it, it is an extraordinary intervention from a leader of a party to dictate to their councillors which way they should vote on, and it is right to bring it to the attention. It is an odd occurrence. It kind of makes us think what's being spoken about in your WhatsApp groups, that the leader of your party had to intervene and tell you as to which way to vote. Just actually back more to the salient point that Councillor Butler has raised is the hybrid option should be open to anyone that came in. I think it would be the height of hypocrites that we avail ourselves of a hybrid option, but we're not extending the same courtesy to the people coming in. If we're inviting them in to give a presentation, they should be invited in at the same standard as ourselves. If we have the hybrid, they should be allowed to hybrid as well.
Okay, Councillor Kieran Dennison.
Just to say, Mayor, as you will know, the decision in Fine Gael was made by the councillors who were canvassed on this by the party way back before the summer. And we all decided we would support the Fine Gael candidate. Now, I understand some parties are riven as to what their candidate is, and some have no candidate, and others have yet to select. So, but we're quite comfortable, and that's why we sent out the directive, so that everybody understands it. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Evie Tormey.
Yeah, thank you. Kieran Dennison kind of explained it, but I think a lot of wild accusations are being thrown around in relation to the Fine Gael group and our process. As was mentioned, the Executive Council contacted us, all the councillors around the country, with a number of options that would be available to us. We, the councillors, chose that. It was not our party leader dictating that. So we have chosen to support our candidate who we would like to see elected. So I think people need to withdraw, and we need to stop as well just throwing around wild accusations in this chamber, because it's happening on a number of topics to a number of different people and groups at the moment. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all the speakers I have. So we're going to go back to Mary Egan. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. And just in relation to these potential candidates coming into the meeting via hybrid, our standing orders are very clear that potential candidates seeking our nomination must be in attendance at the meeting, and only those that are in attendance may be nominated by council to be presidential nominee. So standing orders are clear on that. They must be here in person. The fact, sorry, that no other meetings, as far as we know, there were no other meetings on this Friday of other local authorities. Most of the meetings are the following week, so I don't think we are clashing with anybody. But I could be open to correction on it, but so far in our research we found that there isn't any other local authority holding their special meeting on this Friday. In relation to the hybrid meeting, and Councillor Guerin's question, and then a number of others raised it, the hybrid option is being proposed for this special meeting only. And if councillors remember, this matter had been discussed at OPNF, CPG first, then it went to OPNF, and OPNF referred it back to CPG for further consideration, and that's where it is. So there's no decision has been made in relation to full council having the facility of hybrid meetings, only the other meetings that are in place at the moment. But that's why we need the agreement of yourselves to hold this special meeting with the hybrid option. Any candidate will need to be proposed and seconded to be put forward, and then the process of elimination will occur. So if we have 5 candidates, we just keep going, eliminating the bottom candidate each time until we end up with a candidate that has received the majority of votes, and then at that stage, that candidate will need to be proposed and seconded to be the Fingal nominee, and the resolution will then be voted on. So that's the process. So they come through the elimination process first, and then finally there is a proposer and seconder for the resolution and a vote on that. So that's how the process will work. I think it was Councillor Leddy that referenced that there may be mock candidates within our list. And at the moment, we've taken everybody at face value. We've asked people to submit all of their details to us by midnight tomorrow night. In other words, proof of their citizenship, their age, passport, or any other type of identification. And it's at that stage, you know, when we see what people submit, that we will be then forwarding on to yourselves. And obviously, they need to get the sponsorship of 4 of you. So those things will all be checked before people are invited to present before you on Friday night. I don't have any information in terms of anybody having the sponsorship of 4 councillors. We won't know that presumably until tomorrow, or until people start submitting their information into us. And it may well be that we don't have a meeting on Friday, but I think you may have more information on that than I do. in terms of who might have sponsorship of 4 people or four councillors. I think that's all the questions, Mayor.
Okay, so we have a decision to make, and yes, go ahead, Councillor Donnelly.
Sorry, Mary. So when we get down to the last candidate, they have to be proposed and seconded. Does it then have to be agreed? Okay, thank you.
Right, so we have a decision to make. Do we want the special meeting and the special meeting only on next Friday to be a hybrid meeting? Is that agreed by the room? So do we want to go to a vote on it? It's agreed. Yes, yes. So is anybody calling for a vote on this matter? Joe Newman is calling for a vote on it, so 2 people are calling for a vote. Okay, I'm going to a vote. Yes. Councillor Dennison, yes. Councillor Dennison, hello. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the benefit of the members, this was.
Can we hear Councillor Dennison, please? Hello, lads.
Just for the benefit of the members, this was discussed at the CPG. We all know we have monthly council meetings, we have annual meetings, but this is a special meeting, and we felt it was important that every member have a vote. And I'm here today, I'll be here tomorrow at an SBC. There's other people here who will be at SBC meetings this week, and maybe even other meetings. And sometimes it can be difficult to get here on a Friday.
Okay.
So we just thought it would give all the members. I intend to be here on Friday.
Okay.
But there are members who may not get here on Friday, but I don't want them disenfranchised.
Okay, let's go to the vote. So a vote has been called. Let's have the vote, please. Thanks very much. Clear here. Green is for yes for hybrid. Is that correct? Yes? Yes. Thank you.
The result of the vote is green, yes, 28, yellow, abstain, 3, red, no, 5.
Okay, so hybrid is agreed. All we need is candidates now to turn up after all the work. Okay, so we'll move on to number 23, which is the Fingal Age-Friendly Strategy presentation. Paul Carroll is going to introduce. Been a lot of work done on this, so I hope it's a good presentation, but not too long, please. Thanks very much.
Just to welcome Naomi Weir from the Community Development Department to give a presentation this evening. To thank all the members of the Age Friendly Alliance who've contributed to the development of the strategy, including all the various different stakeholders, some representatives from the elected members here, HSE, Garda Síochána, Older Persons Council, and Senan Turnbull as the chair of the group. So hand it over to Naomi. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. I have a very short presentation for you this evening. Just because the presentation is short doesn't mean that the strategy isn't important. Delighted to present the Fingal Age-Friendly Strategy for 2026 to 2030. Paul Carroll has just given you a brief overview, which I'll just add a little bit to, on the Age-Friendly Alliance. So this strategy is the strategy for the cross-agency Age-Friendly Alliance, of which you have 3 representatives, 3 elected members on that actual board at the moment. We also have our Age-Friendly Programme Manager, Katrina Murphy, the Age-Friendly Regional Manager who reports to the centralised office in Meath County Council. The Older People's Council is the group of who represent the older people in Fingal and their voice, and you'll often hear us talk about the voice of the older people when we come to Age-Friendly, and it's very, very important that we consult with our older people when we want to know what they need, because we can't tell them what they need. And we're very lucky in Fingal, we have very vocal people and they tell us exactly what they need, and that's what we want. We're delighted with that. The interdepartmental team is just what it says. It's the interdepartmental team across the Fingal County Council, so it'll have people from operations, from housing, from planning, right across the spectrum of departments. And that's when any action is needed, that's cross-departmental, it goes through that team. We've technical advisors, age-friendly technical advisors in the architects department, and then we host 2 age-friendly homes coordinators, and they're also reporting back alongside the regional manager to Meath County Council. So this is not just a Fingal County Council strategy, it's a strategy for all the partners of the Age-Friendly Alliance. The strategy development timeline, we actually started developing this in May of 2024. And the reason for that was because we had an extensive consultation period, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, really, really important. So from June to October 2024, we spoke to the older people and also to groups working with older people right across the county. We have data analysis from November to December, and then we had the co-design of actions, and that was with the Age-Friendly Alliance themselves from January to April. There's no point in us having actions and an action plan associated with a strategy for partners such as An Garda Síochána and the HSE unless we have them in the room and prepared to take ownership of those actions, and that's what that period was about. So we have the draft strategy come into us then in May 2025. There was a lot of editing to be done on that, and I'd like to thank my colleague Katrina Murphy, the Age-Friendly Programme Manager, for the work she did on that. She can't be here this evening. It then went before the SPC in June, and it has made the September meeting tonight here. It's for your attention tonight, and we hope that it'll be to your satisfaction. The strategy process map. We had an inception meeting with the consultants whom we used primarily to assist us with the consultation period. And we had a process meeting back in May, as I said. We have desk research, followed by public meetings, event attendance, and one-to-one meetings. And what I mean by event attendance is we actually brought the consultants out to some of the large Fingal events, Flavours of Fingal, out to the Vintage Picnic, to talk to people who wouldn't normally fill out a survey or answer questions. You know, we just wanted to kind of catch people as they were walking by, older people, to ask them their opinions on a set of questions that we had. We also did 2 sets of surveys, one for the older people themselves and one for the service providers. And then we had the co-design meetings, that was with the Age-Friendly Alliance, and we're going through the process at the moment of drafting and adoption. So we're hopefully at the final hurdle tonight. Just to let you know about the consultation process, there's 482 people attended consultation events in person. We had 237 surveys completed. We had 20 public meetings, 3 public events, 12 service providers consulted, 12 members of the Age-Friendly Alliance were interviewed individually, and 10 sections of Fingal County Council were consulted. So there's quite a wide range of consultation there, broad range across, from older people to the services and across our own departments as well. That just gives you an idea. I won't go through that, you'll have it in your pack, but it gives you an idea of the numbers of attendees at the different events right across the county. 71 people at Vintage Picnic participated. And then in Unger, we had a really successful family day there with 61 people attending and participating as well. So, it really benefited us having a broad approach to this. So the findings that we came up with, we had 4 main thematic areas: health and well-being, mobility and accessibility, information and participation, and safe and attractive neighbourhoods. And within that then we have 7 objectives, and I'll just go on to the next slide. I won't go through all of these, again they're in your pack, but just to remember that these are not solely for Fingal County Council. So if we pick Team B there, safe and attractive neighbourhoods, the first objective, which is objective 3, it's to improve safety and security for older people, and that's where An Garda Síochána would come in there. Objective 4 would definitely be one where Fingal County Council would be very interested in, and that we have actions on. Enhance accessibility in public spaces, and we have other partners in on that area as well to do with accessibility and disability. So we have the buy-in of all of the Age Friendly Alliance partners to the work plan that has been devised. It's in the back of the strategy that you received. What I will say about the strategy that you received, it's ready to go to the designer, so you'll note that there's no photographs or anything like that in it, but the content will not materially change at all, just to mention that to you. Just some observations on it. As I mentioned, we took a bottom-up approach, and the actions in the action plan are based on consultation outcome and the challenges that have been identified by older people right across Fingal. And we did note that similar challenges actually arose across the county, maybe with a different guise, but they did arise. There are teams right across the county. It's very important with any strategy that it's implemented and that it's monitored and reviewed. So we have an annual implementation plan that will be overseen by the review meetings, which will be quarterly, of the Age Friendly Alliance. The Older People's Council will also play a key role in reviewing the action plan. The Fingal County Council interdepartmental team will convene as needed to advance key projects from a Fingal perspective. And then there will be an annual progress report produced by the Alliance on the progress of the actual strategy itself. So we certainly don't want this one sitting on a shelf somewhere. We have got a lot of buy-in from it. I know it says 2026, but we wanted to be ready. We didn't want to be doing this last minute. So hopefully it's meeting with your approval tonight, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Evie Tormey.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I was just wondering, obviously you've referenced how important it is to have targets that are achievable and measurable. How much funding is being allocated to the delivery of this? Because obviously the funding will be a key component of it. Kind of an example that would kind of stands out to me that took a lot of my energy in the last term was the need to improve the public toilets, and then also to have more. And I was really taken aback just at the feedback I got from older residents around my area, and also kind of their adult kids as well, saying that actually now they're able to go out to places because the toilets were available to them there, and maybe there wasn't actually the confidence to go out on a walk because they weren't sure where the nearest toilet was. So whenever I've put in toilets requests for new places, for example, like along the Baldoyle Greenway, it's been told that's not part of our plan right now. So I'm just wondering, how much money are we actually committing to the delivery of improving outdoor spaces and supporting people in that way? I'm delighted to see housing for older people down. So people be aware that that was something that I really tried to push during the development plan, and I'm pretty sure one of those objectives in this was one of the motions that I put down. Similarly, felt like I was encountering a lot of resistance to including housing for older people in it, but obviously the older people have spoken about the need to really prioritise that in the council going forward. I don't feel like the indicators or that's really kind of meaty enough in terms of trying to deliver housing for older people. I know we have at the Housing SPC a presentation on the right sizing policy coming up. I just want to be clear, is that for housing across the county, or is that just right sizing for social housing tenants? Because it's not super clear for me. Like, it needs to be for the whole council. And then I think we need to be then looking at identifying certain areas. And for example, you know, if the council is committed to pursuing like the Tucket's Lane site in Howth, like, I think that might be a good one for social housing, for housing for older people who might want to downsize. That might free up other places. So I think I'd like to just see maybe a little bit more clarity around actually how we're measuring it out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks very much. And as an older person, mortally wound me every time you said that term. I prefer over 55s. As an older person, I attended 2 of the sessions, and it was really, really well done, and there was great engagement from the over 55s relating to it. I'm really pleased to see the what's it at the end, how we're going to measure it, which is really good, because I think we do quite a lot of that, and we have great plans, we have great proposals, and we don't really measure them to see how we're doing, you know, and it's great to see that we're going to be doing it yearly. I would have liked to see more being made of the public lighting, because it did come up a lot, and especially older people, they're very frightened of going out in the dark, and they will not go to public areas if they're not well lit. And it's not just the personal security aspect, it's actually the fear of falling, you know, and seeing where they're walking. So, you know, I welcome the plan. A lot of work has gone into it. Well done, everybody.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Naomi, for the presentation and all the work that has gone in up to the publication of the draft. I specifically want to just ask around Objective 4, the enhanced accessibility in public spaces, and how we're going to get there. Obviously, you know, a cross-departmental approach is needed. I'm wondering, in terms of the audits that have been done to date, where are we at? Because I would say that there's not many of our towns and villages that would probably pass in terms of being fully accessible, whether that be for people with mobility issues, older people, whatever it might be. And we've a lot of work to do. So I would see that public realm enhancement schemes targeted pretty much at every town and village we have are required. Also then from the operational point of view, I mean, we had a good discussion at the Hope Malahide Area Committee last Wednesday around the likes of clutter on street, broken pavements, tree roots and so forth. All of these things, in certain areas, lack of adequate seating that you know, can be freely available and freely used. You know, so there's a whole suite of measures that we probably need to get better at providing, or we certainly need to get better at providing. So I just want to try and get a sense of how this is going to go from the page to implementation, because we can all agree that all these things are great and required, and absolutely required, but it's going to be incumbent on this council to have an approach across departments to deliver that, because that enhanced accessibility in the public realm is not just a benefit for older people, it's a benefit for everybody. Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you. Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you, and thanks, Naomi, for the report. I am a member of the Age Friendly Alliance, and I'm nearly old enough to use the age-friendly parking, and in 10 years' time, I think most people in this room are going to be categorised as older people. So, look, we're brilliant at reports in this country, but not so brilliant at the implementation. So I think the nail was hit on the head when the somebody asked about the money to go with this, because you sit down with any older person for 5 minutes and they'll tell you exactly what they need. They need the footpaths repaired. Our budgets are not big enough for all the footpath repairs that we need to do. They need benches to sit on. There's places that I've been asking for 5 years that older people are saying to me, I can't go for a walk on our beautiful new greenway because we haven't got a bench. They want to sit, toilets as well, as Evie mentioned. You know, other things that are not directly related to this council, but our partners in the HSE need to be making sure that they are making provision for community nurses and all of those kind of facilities that we need to keep people well and keep them out of nursing homes. And community centres also. Every town and village should have a space where older people can go. Social exclusion is a big problem. They need somewhere that's in their local village that they can go and play cards or bridge or bowling or whatever else they want to do, and that needs to happen. Crucially, I think we mentioned right sizing. I don't see any evidence that we are getting to grips with the right sizing required. Every older person you speak to, every door I knock on, there's people living in 4 or 5 bedroom homes. They're in their 80s. Their houses are too big for them. They want to stay in their communities, and if there was an opportunity for them to downsize to somewhere smaller in their community, they would take it, but it's not available. So it's just all about implementation, and have we got the money to do this? We certainly have the will in this council, but we need to implement it. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Mulville, Councillor Mulville.
Thanks, Jerry, and to thank Ms. Weir for the presentation and starting to support the strategy. And just to support the points that Councillor Hopkins made, particularly around right sizing. I think we have examples, for example, in the Dublin Northwest area, where you had the financial contribution scheme, where people were able to sell their houses back to the council and move to, you know, nice complexes, Glasnevin, Finglas, Ballymon, where they had a warden on site and very age-appropriate housing. So I guess we're looking for government to provide the funding for that. That's something really that's needed. And secondly, around the issue around the public seating benches, I think it's mentioned in the introduction bit. I didn't see it in the kind of action plan bit. Maybe it's under something else. Just as it's an important one, because, you know, as other people have said, older people, not just older people, people who, you know, might have some issues with walking, need to be able to sit down every now and again and have a rest. So it's really important we can keep rolling out more public seating benches, and also when they're put in, we don't remove them too quickly without a proper process, because you have examples in Dunabate, for example, where there was some public seating benches taken out, and now you just have cars parked there. So it was an unfortunate decision in that regards. But I think overall it's a really good strategy, and look forward to seeing it implemented. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
Thanks very much for the report. I just hope that when Avi was talking to older people in Hope Malahide, that she wasn't referring to her chat with me. But anyway, I've got a concern, and that's when we all talk about people's houses being too big for them. You see, my house, my children are gone, but I love my house and I'm not moving, and I don't want to move. But then my next door neighbour maybe wants the option, and we're not providing that facility by having proper step-down facilities and communities where older people can go and live together and there are services available to them. But I would just really ask people to be very careful when we're talking about downsizing, right sizing and all that, and be sensitive to the wishes of people who've spent 20, 30 and 40 years in their home. No, it's just a small point I'd make. The benches, I have to say, in Hope Malahide, and I think it was Councillor O'Brien raised it some years back, and we got them all down now around the East Pier and the Front Pier, which is brilliant. And the only one thing that I do think we need more of, and this is speaking from experience, is more age-friendly parking spaces. If we could look at that, I think it would be really and truly helpful. Other than that, thanks very much for the report. Great to see the interest being shown in it, and just if we could just be a little sensitive to people and their homes. Thanks.
Councillor David Healy.
Good morning, and thanks very much for the presentation and the excellent draft strategy. There is one aspect I'm a bit concerned about, and it's 3.2 road safety, in which there's an objective of road safety talks to older people as drivers, cyclists and pedestrians. And I think we need to be focusing on the infrastructure that we're providing more than need to be talking to people, you know, who have been receiving road safety messages for many decades. And you know, if the messages aren't working, then maybe the infrastructure needs to change. And I very much agree with Councillor O'Brien about this. I think what we've got in under Objective 4 should be stronger. It's not just about accessibility in public spaces, it's about safety in public spaces. And the risks to older people walking around are primarily from the traffic and the way that we manage the traffic or fail to manage the traffic to keep them safe. And that's the way we need to be addressing it in our role as a road authority and the street authority. So I'd like to see that bit improved. I very much welcome the objective 5.1 about having a right sizing policy. And I note the statement, and I completely take what Councillor Guerin has said. You know, this is about options. Under the previous page, page 23, it says there's a clear deficit of smaller accessible homes that would allow older residents to right size within their own communities with few affordable or appropriate properties available for purchase. And indeed, it's not just older residents who face this challenge. And you know, we've had a reasonable discussion about it here when I raised the idea of a variation whereby our planners would put in conditions for apartment complexes requiring that some of them be put on sale. And it got a negative response from the executive after the statutory period. But I think we need to look at that again. I think if we're going to have a right sizing policy, there's no point in doing it when we are saying in our strategy that there is a deficit of the smaller accessible homes. And we've seen the development in Howth open up with 500 units so far, all for rent. And despite the fact that when we as councillors knock on the doors, you know, it's one of the questions people ask is to say, well, I'd love to buy an apartment down there and sell this house. And, you know, Councillor Guerin's neighbour is an example of that. So I think we're going to need to look at that again in our planning system and the planning conditions that we put on apartment developments, because there's no point in having a right sizing policy unless we can ensure that the houses are made available, the homes are made available, houses or apartments.
Thank you. Thank you. John Walsh, Councillor John Walsh.
Thanks, Naomi, for the presentation. I really welcome the strategy. I think it's excellent. I suppose just to take up a point that others have made, and fully agree with Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Healy on 4.1, accessible spaces. I think that's somewhere where we really need to put resources behind having safe and accessible spaces in our all over the county, and particularly in the older urban villages. I mean, certainly looking at Castleknock, it's not particularly age friendly or accessible to older people. Then newer villages like Ongar, also not particularly accessible, and obviously issues over how villages were designed until very recently. But I think just in inquiries I've made in the last couple of years, often the answer on doing walkability studies, on expanding infrastructure to provide more age-friendly infrastructure is lack of resources. So I think we certainly need to address that. I think there's a need to do walkability studies and audits of villages across the county, and we need to provide funding for that. And I just welcome I do welcome the recommendation. I think it's 2.3 on building on the age-friendly towns initiative. Again, I had made a query a couple of years ago about Castleknock becoming an age-friendly town, and I was told kind of politely but firmly that the council simply didn't have the resources to support that, and that also requires significant volunteer effort. But I think that needs to change. I think it's an excellent strategy. It won't go anywhere without staff resources and financial resources being put behind it. On benches, I think actually a lot of progress has been made here, and you know, particularly the operations department can take a lot of credit. Over the last 4 years in Dublin 15, we have succeeded in rolling out benches and green spaces. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and that's beginning to happen. We need to do more of that in urban villages. I think benches like that are an essential part of a civilised community for all of us, but particularly for older people. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for the report and presentation, and thank you for the work that has gone into it. I agree with what the others have said. Certainly, it's a well-timed report, especially what we're facing into on the 16th of November. It certainly gives us a lot to consider, especially when we are facing into the budgeting process. I just have one question on Objective 1.6 and your engagement with the Corral EU project. Especially kind of in and around the issue of loneliness. Like, it was the JRC survey that showed that Ireland was the most loneliest country in the EU. So I'm delighted to see that you're engaging with that project. Would this expand out further than the over 55s, the 2 pilots that you're looking at, to the wider demographic? Because loneliness just doesn't affect you when you're over 55. It's something that affects all ages, not just as you get older. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Karina Johnson.
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to welcome the report and thanks for the presentation. I suppose, look, from my own perspective, my area, one of the big challenges is access to public transport, and I do note the number of action items. I think it's under section 6, or objective 6, about improving accessibility and access to public transport for older people. So I suppose the big challenge, really for areas like Portrane and some of the rural areas in Fingal is that we have a lot of older people who just can't get to hospital appointments in particular. I suppose I welcome the fact that I see the community car, as we mentioned, and I think I mentioned Donabate, Mulhudder and Castleknock. Can you clarify if Portrane is included in that? Because we do have an awful lot of older people in Portrane. We've quite an unreliable bus service there. I'm sure many people are aware of that already. So a lot of people are stranded in Portrane looking to try and get to hospital appointments, shopping. So I suppose while I welcome it, I'd like to see the community car maybe expanded to other areas and the rural areas in particular in Fingal. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mark Boland.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to welcome the strategy and thank Naomi and the team for putting this together. Very comprehensive. I look forward to the completed one. I did just want to note in terms of Objective 4, enhancing accessibility in public spaces, is the ability to look at how we can create dedicated spaces that may include specific uses for older people or cross-generational spaces within a lot of towns, and I know certainly within mine and Lusk, there is particular older groups that have great cross-generational abilities to hold programs or workshops with younger kids and things. It would be nice to sort of see a look towards dedicated spaces that cross-generation and improve both facilities for older and younger people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's everyone. I'll just say a few words. I'm just going to zoom in on one thing, and that is the people with private homes who are not being catered for right now, and that's a lot of them, who wish to move, who are old, cold and lonely, who are in homes that are inappropriate for their age, with the risk of falls, which can be very serious to their health, who are paying high property tax with low pensions, and there's nothing for them. And we have some excellent schemes like the one we have in Rush for social homes, social houses for the elderly. And there's nothing like that for people who are in private homes who either want to sell or rent their homes. So we need to do something about that. I visited a widow recently. She's age 84. She's still grieving. She's rattling around the house. She's lonely. And there's nothing for them. So it's not being addressed. I'm lobbying away at government, knocking on the door, but I'm not getting there yet. We have a minister for the elderly. We need to see the beef. Where are the homes? What's the proposal? And I don't see anything solid yet. I want to commend Naomi Weir and all the team to put this together. And the comments made by Councillor Owen O'Brien about the audit, and the audits around the county are well made, about the various things that are missing for walking or whatever it is. And as a young fella, I would concur with that. So I support the proposal, the policy, but the deficit is still there for people who are old, cold and lonely, paying high property tax with houses that are, out of date regarding heat, and they're not being catered for, and they're sitting on a wealthy asset, and they're trapped there. They can't go anywhere. Anyway, and they all don't want to go to Jimmy Gearon's point. So anyway, what are we doing with this now? Do we Have to approve it. We're going back to the answer, sorry. Naomi, sorry. Yeah, back to Naomi for all the queries.
Chair. I'll just take a couple of them together, first of all. In relation to this strategy, it's accompanied by a very comprehensive work plan. And the work plan has SMART objectives the whole way through it. And those SMART objectives, they're obviously specific, measurable, time and all the rest. We have made sure that they are deliverable with the partners on the alliance. We're not going to be able to fix every single thing in Fingal that we would need to fix or we would need to adapt in one strategy. But what we'll do is we will deliver on that work plan, and the progress on that work plan, and it's very specific, the work plan, as to where and what. Progress on that work plan is going to be measured by every alliance meeting. The alliance are changing their meetings so that they're looking specifically at progress on that plan. Is going to be the headline for every meeting that they have. In relation to funding, we have asked our partners in the HSE and the Guards and various other agencies, part of the process of co-designing those actions was, you know, how are you going to resource them? How are you going to fund them? So we obviously don't have influence into their funding, but we do have a commitment from them that they do have funding there and they do have resources. And we're confident that we can provide our commitments, meet our commitments under that as well. And we're doing our budget processes at the moment, so it'll be down to the councillors when they decide to give us money in October. Just in relation to Councillor Gearan and the concern about people who didn't want to move, the voice of older people is very important, but the choice of older people is equally important, and we are always very conscious of that. You know, this is a strategy. However, there will be people that won't want to avail of different things, and that's fully respected in everything that we do. It's one of the tenets of working with any group of people. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're older or younger. Just in relation to the Corral project, the Corral project is the Fingal participation in the Corral project is based around over 55s. And however, that doesn't mean that lessons learned from the over 55s can't transfer across to other initiatives that may happen. Because, as you said, Councillor, you don't just have loneliness in older people, it's right across the board. In relation to the transport to hospitals, that is one of the initiatives on the actual work plan as well. And it's North County Dublin, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I'll come back to you, Councillor, just to find out about Portran. There was very much a push for North County Dublin and Beaumont Hospital, and some progress has actually been made along that already. So, you know, these initiatives, they will be delivered on. The intergenerational spaces, we have intergenerational projects in. One of them is centred around spaces and safe spaces for both older and younger to come together. There's actually a very interesting project we're working on already in Balbriggan, but that's not one in the strategy. We're looking to expand in a different area with that, so that is something that is considered, yeah. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else pertinent that I've missed? No? Look, at audits that have taken place previously, they're there, we have them. However, things have changed when you look around Fingal. We're moving and growing at such a rapid pace. Those audits need to be updated. We have undertaken to do so many walkability studies per year. There's not a great cost in doing walkability studies. It's more people. It's more people from the ground, volunteers from the ground, and staff. So we will be revisiting some of those walkability studies as part of the strategy, and just to update them. There's no point in updating them if they don't feed into the operations work plans and the operations plans. So that's where we work very closely with our colleagues in operations now as well.
We're going to have to move on, but Councillor John Walsh, we need to move on. Go ahead.
It's just a quick follow-up to Councillor O'Brien's question. So there is funding for a series of kind of walkability studies and audits then?
I'm confident we will be able to conduct the number of walkability studies that we've said, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's a good discussion. So I need a proposer and seconder for the Fingal age. Yeah? We all right? Yeah. Fingal age friendly strategy proposed by Councillor Jimmy Gear and seconded by Councillor Darren Kelly over there. Is that agreed? Agreed, thank you. So we're going now to the Chief Executive's report. Chief Executive.
Thanks, Mayor. Members, please take the report as read. I am going to call out the operational crews who maintain our beaches and the success in the Irish Business Against Litter survey and the ranking given to particularly Portmarnock and Skerries. But I know you share my thanks to them, so just no need to dwell on that further, but I do really want to call them out. Then just in terms of the capital programme meeting, which will be held in October, where we'll be considering the capital programme for the next 3 years. I just want to draw to your attention that every department has given a good update on their capital projects, so it might be just worth considering that in the coming month before the capital programme meeting in October. And again, just on the operations works programme, good evidence of progress over the summer months. Worth taking a look at that then in the coming weeks as well, just to see the work programme being delivered across the county. I know you'll see it on the ground as you travel around. We're here to take any questions. We can answer those questions now or in the coming days. Thank you.
I don't have any speakers at the minute, but I don't know. Matthew's just joined us. Is this the appropriate time to say something on the Section 28 later and zoning process, all that stuff? Yeah. Would you like to say something? Someone else? We're of 3 now. It's only of 3. Okay, I'm going to go to Matthew, let him make a statement, if that's okay, and then we'll go to the questions.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, just to say, we briefed the CPG last week on the process, and we'll be providing further detail at the SPC this week that I believe the Mayor is going to attend as well. And then following that, then we'll have a briefing session, 2 briefing sessions with the members. One on the Wednesday, the 17th of September at 4 p.m. and a second one then on Tuesday, the 7th of October at 4 p.m. So look, we've just confirmed those dates for corporates. We will send those out formally. Formal invites will go out tomorrow, just to get those into your diaries. We propose to have those as hybrid meetings. So myself and Roisin Burke, Senior Planner, will be in the chamber here with any councillor that can attend, and then obviously for those that may not be able to attend can dial in. So that we propose that would be a hybrid meeting. And that, again, that's to give more information on the process and the timelines that are associated with that. And obviously, if there's any queries arising at the meeting, we'll try and answer them as best we can. And if there's any queries after the meeting, we'll obviously make ourselves as available as we can to answer any of those questions. So look, that's the process. I suppose the immediate process, and look, we look forward to further engagement through the SPC and the briefing sessions.
Okay, so go to Councillor Helen Redwood.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to address the issue of the measures to house people fleeing the war situation in Ukraine. It's on page 82. Obviously, these measures are very necessary and very welcome, but I also note and welcome the expansion of the scheme to include all applicants for international protection and all refugees with permission to remain, who have permission to remain status. And I also note the provision of the recognition and payment to those who are hosting Ukrainians. So my question is this, it's not a and please don't misunderstand my question, it's not about pitting the needs of one group of people against another, but I think most people would see that by far the greatest humanitarian crisis by an order of magnitude that's currently going on is people from Gaza and Sudan. And given the severity of the crisis, I wonder, well, I would ask, actually, does the Council have any specific measures for those fleeing the genocide in those countries, you know, who'll be suffering particular physical problems, psychological problems, as well as obviously the suffering the anxiety of when they come to this country, the question of how to secure accommodation. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you, and thanks for the report. I'd just like to ask, we had a motion passed at our local area meeting on Thursday requesting a new plan for infill housing in Fortland. It doesn't necessitate the demolition of 4 homes. And I'd just like to know what the next steps are there, if you could. Thank you.
Councillor John Burchell.
Thanks, Chair. It was a question relating to Kellystown Cemetery. I was seeking clarification on whether uncoffined burials would be permitted in the cemetery when it's up and running. I'm asking because I put in a couple of questions to the local area committee, and the answers would lead me to believe that no, uncoffined burials wouldn't be permitted. I originally asked if a separate area in the cemetery would be allocated for Muslim burials, and the answer was there is no separate area designated in Kellystown at present specifically for Muslim burials, which would be uncoffined per 6.2 mode of burial of Fingal burial ground bylaws. So subsequently I asked to advise if Kellystown Cemetery would have an area designated exclusively for uncoffined burials as per that bylaw, and the answer was Fingal burial grounds are non-denominational and are open to any person regardless of their religion who wishes to be buried at any of our burial grounds. There will be no separate area designated in Kellystown Cemetery specifically for uncoffined burials. So I was just seeking clarification on whether they will actually be allowed or not in Kellystown when it's functional. Thanks.
Councillor Jimmy Kieran.
Yeah, a couple of things. Firstly, I'm looking forward to in response to Councillor Donnelly's question on Fortland. Something I'm familiar with because she's made me aware of it now for the last number of months. I know it's been the cause of extreme distress and concern to residents how this was handled, and I know that Councillor Donnelly has been working tirelessly on it, and we're leaving residents in fear. They don't know what's happening, and we as a landlord owe it to our residents not to have them worrying as to whether they may be evicted. Whether they're going to be rehoused or not is another matter, but I do think we should give that some consideration. Second thing I'd like to do is agree with Chief Executive on the tremendous work that was done, and I know particularly in Hope Malahide and the beaches and how operations got out and how they dealt with matters and all that. That was very, very much appreciated. It couldn't go today without mentioning the success of the Maritime Festival yesterday. At 3:30 on Saturday night, Sunday morning, there were teams out taking down tents and other facilities so that they could be put back up at 9:30 so that people attending the festival could avail of them. And I've witnessed this. I just think it was one of the best insofar as the effort that was put in by the staff. So I'd really like to thank Paul Barnes for that. It's much appreciated. The other thing is, and I was surprised, no mention of the variation within the actual manager's report, but if we could, when we're looking at the work there, if we could provide a list of the total number of houses, I think is somewhere around 38,000 that we have zoned for. But if you could confirm for me if they can include the likes of Lisson Hall, done sink and so on, which would probably be 22,000, and they wouldn't fall within the category of land zoning that the Minister's looking for in this. So thanks again for that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paul Mulville.
Gurgamagad Avera agus Bragod Asux an Tourish agus Erngay Doshies, Poilum Traslim agus Mulumshe, an Ober Avir Shil Kun Imiti Gaelga agus Ihinte Kultur Gaelga Kurabon Sakorlia agus Mulumshe Shin agus Tashitav the name is Eric and Gaelga Kurkun Keen Sakorlia agus Sekunde agus Mulumshe and Ober Shin. Just to thank all involved in organising the recent Irish language events, very successful, well attended, and to encourage that we continue the work in promoting the Irish language in the council and across the county. Second question, to return briefly to Brookfield and Rush, there was comment made to us by local residents around the fact that we see in their estate where they have no problem with active travel as far as I understand, bikes and pedestrians going through. It's the vehicular traffic going through their estate and going onto Rush Main Street going to cause traffic issues. I mean, they're desperate to find some kind of resolution to it, and they look at the distinction between Kinseely, very good permeability active travel scheme put in there, but in their estate, the opposite. So I think we need to keep on looking at it as much as we can, within the restraints of the planning process, of course. And finally, just to welcome the progress on the MARA application in relation to the coastal erosion of Port Rand, hugely important, and just to urge continued progress as much as we can in pursuing and forwarding on that important project. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Councillor Owen O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. First off, around CCTV provision around the litter black spots areas that we're experiencing regular dumping in. Raised it a number of times before, Mayor, particularly around bring banks and textile banks. The way certain users of those facilities treat them is an absolute disgrace. I think it's low-hanging fruit in terms of the ability to find people and to catch them in the act. So I'm just looking for an update on that. And secondly then, is around the dog warden service, particularly as it pertains to restricted breeds and breaches of the bylaws. One park near me, you could probably go in 3 or 4 different stages of the day to see owners of restricted breeds completely flouting their responsibilities. It's only a matter of time before we have a serious incident. So I'd just like to know, are we making any progress on that particular issue as well? Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor John Walsh.
Thanks to the Chief Executive for the report, which is very detailed and comprehensive. Two questions really, just I suppose firstly, on Fort Lawn. We had a very good discussion at the area committee on the motion that Councillor Donnelly proposed, which was approved unanimously, which sought a revised alternative plan for social housing, but to protect any homes in Fort Lawn from demolition. So I would like to get an update on that, because the current proposal is causing great distress to 4 families of council tenants. Secondly, the consultation on the Old Schoolhouse Master Plan in Clonsilla is referenced in the report. I welcome the fact that went ahead. There was some concern about it going ahead over the summer, but I appreciate that it was extended for 2 months. I think there were 277 submissions on that master plan. From what I read, at least 270 of the 277 favoured restoring the old schoolhouse for community use and urged that to achieve that, Fingal Council would acquire the old schoolhouse. And really, I think that provides a very strong impetus to reconsider the proposal in the draft master plan that the old schoolhouse would be used for residential use. Clonsilla has no community centre at the moment, no community hub, no publicly owned community hub at all. There's been very significant residential development which is needed, and further development of around 90 units is proposed on the old schoolhouse lands. In those circumstances, it makes no sense to propose that the old schoolhouse itself, which is a historic heritage structure, heritage building, would be allocated for residential use, and instead it should be allocated for community use. So I was going to ask if the council would take that into consideration, and would also consider making a credible attempt to acquire the old schoolhouse. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Murphy.
Just one quick question in relation to an upgrade of the car parks in Balbriggan. I know
We removed some parking in Key Street, and there was some issues with commuters concerned about the parking alternatives, and we nominated the upgraded Bath Road car park as the new facility, and it's a magnificent new car park with EV charging, etc., and full lighting. However, it's not open. There was an assumption that it would open on the 1st of September in conjunction with the schools and people going back to work. But it's still closed, so I just need to get an update on when that's actually going to open. Thank you.
Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief Executive, for the report. Yeah, absolutely. Just want to come in relation to Forlan. I'm sure everyone in the council is aware of what's gone on there, in particular councillors on a local level in relation to specific details, i.e. tenants' daughters being given letters saying your house is going to be demolished, letters being addressed to the wrong address. I'm wondering what process and what steps has the council taken to ensure that that type of stuff doesn't happen again, so letters are addressed to the correct property and they're not handed off to kids. And then as well, is there any internal disciplinary procedure for that type of thing that happens and that happened? And then as well then just in relation to Lanesborough, up there in Meekstown, the playground was destroyed and was set on fire. I'm seeing people asking for CCTV to be installed in the area. They've been asking for quite some time. Just having a look at the finance page at the end of the report, CCTV installation to Lanesborough Park, the 11 SKS Communication Limited, grant €200,790. Contract start date 4th of the 6th, 2025. I just want to make sure that that's the contractor that's been appointed for Lanesborough to install CCTV, and if it is, what's the delay and when can people expect CCTV to be installed? Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Very much. Just to add on to what Councillor Murphy had mentioned there in regards to Bath Road and the opening of the car park, there is a knock-on effect at the overflow car park, and because of not having that car park open on Bath Road, the overflow car park is experiencing what I'll call irrational parking at the moment, which is causing a great nuisance to the people on that area of Bath Road. There is numerous positive things coming out of this, and there always is every month from the Chief Executive report. But just to ask just a couple of questions. One in relation to eco toilets. Is there a proposal in place, or will be there a proposal in place for eco toilets to be put into position in the North County area around our beaches? CCTV of dumping hotspots is. We've only just recently passed our new measures in regards to waste management, and just looking for a date when the CCTV will be put in place, and when will the additional staff be put in place? And then we have a situation, one particular place in Balbriggan and Stevens' Town School Complex on the Clonard road, where a lot of work has been undertaken by the council to put in place a signalised crossing, but we are at the behest now of the ESB to get that turned on. The children have returned to both schools, School Cormac and Breamore Educate together, but we are waiting on the ESB. Is there any chance that we can apply some pressure on the ESB to prioritise this? Because we're driving past this in the last week now with, I can only estimate, hundreds of kids are crossing that road now. This has been happening since the schools opened, but now that we've done our bit, can we not put the pressure on the ESB to do that? And I just want to also raise the removal of hedging and trees for to put in place fencing at Folkestown, Balbriggan, and the development there. Is it really necessary when we had a border? We had an existing border there of hedgerow and trees. Could we not put the fencing behind that without having to remove it? Because it's causing it goes against all our biodiversity measures that we have in place here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to extend my thanks to all the events and community staff and all the volunteers of Howth Sutton Autism Group on the incredible sensory tent that was at the Maritime Festival over the weekend, and just to say more of this, please. We are making some progress on the dereliction and vacancy, but we need to be much more ambitious until either homelessness or vacancy and dereliction are eradicated, or both. We have a childcare crisis in Fingal, which is making parents' lives extremely difficult. We have a significant number of childcare facilities that were granted planning permission that have not yet put in commencement notices, and some of these are going on several years. We have a list that I was provided with today of 11 over the last 18 months with no commencement notices. So I'm asking Fingal to get tough on developers. They're building homes that we need, but they're not adhering to their legal responsibilities to provide childcare facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Siobhan Shovlin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just in relation to the outdoor recreation infrastructure scheme, I just wonder, would anyone be able to provide a little bit of information on what the hope is that might look like in reality? It sounds like a really exciting project. I know Councillor Walsh touched on the Schoolhouse Master Plan. A number of people have asked me just when we might expect to hear something back on that. Would that be at the next council meeting? I see there's something there about the next couple of weeks. Great work being done in operations with the Pats and Roselawn, Limelawn, etc., which is brilliant. And also Kellystown, it's really positive to see that that's on track to finish this year. Finally, the team have done great work in Tiernan Park with new play equipment, which brings me on to just asking, are we still on track for the playground in Laurel Lodge commencing in September this month? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Ellen Troy.
Thank you. Just the issue on drones. The government has published the National Policy Framework, but it stated, page 112 there, that the policy framework does not appear to provide for a change in the law to permit local authorities to regulate drones with regard to noise. It's in Dublin 15, it's causing absolute havoc. People are so concerned about this. So it seems that the council, there's no control over the noise levels, number of drones, number of operators, number and locations of the hubs. And everybody that's in our area knows that this is very topical. It's causing great concern with everyone. And thanks for all the things that have been done in the area, particularly the removal of the chicane in Beach Park Lawn, or Beach Park Avenue, sorry, was welcomed with great delight. Everybody's so happy about that. Thank you.
Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Just two quick things. I'll be laughed at here by my colleagues after our comments earlier on standing orders, but I want to say a massive thank you to the council and in particular the community team in regards to the recent events there at the River Valley Red Ingle Community Centre in the Pride of Place. It was an incredible show of support by the council and backing for the local area. I am going to assume they're going to do incredibly well after it. It was a brilliant morning. Just a quick question in relation to the 6 million additional money that was granted to us there in terms of tenant in situ capital assistance scheme and the buy and renew. Personally, 6 million, when you look at the price of housing in Fingal, it is a tiny drop in the ocean. It's quite insulting. We'll take it. Thank you very much. And it is a large proportion of the 50 million extra. But do we have any idea on how that is going to be spent across those three schemes? Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor David Healy.
I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Troy's question there about drones and that's element of the Chief Executive's report. I was really struck to see that there's a planning application to Dunleary Rathdown in relation to drones, and their response has been to seek detailed information on the noise impacts on their community. And it's my understanding that the planning law is very general. And for example, when we're asked for permission for any kind of a development, we can consider the impact that development would have on traffic anywhere throughout the Fingal area and the noise impact that the traffic would have on people. And so I find it hard to understand exactly what's meant by local authorities apparently not being able to regulate drones with regard to noise, because it's my understanding that when we get a planning application, then that opens us to regulate the noise impacts of the activity at that location, but also as it leaves that location. And you know, we're very used to planning conditions specifying how people can access a particular site, for example, and how any kind of activity base there can operate. So I'd be grateful for an explanation of what exactly that means. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, and finally at the minute, Councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I'd just like everyone else, I'd like to extend my thanks and congratulations to the operations and events for a fantastic summer of events. And just one note, if possible, could we look at moving the Swords Pride Festival into June? I think it would certainly be a better fit in the calendar if it was held in June rather than later in the summer. I just have one question regarding could you perhaps kind of a bit of clarity on the contract to Bord na Móna. It was just over 280,000 for the provision of bins at beaches. It just seems to be a quite high amount for a provision of bins. Was there more involved in that contract, especially seeing that it's only for 6 months and it's just under 300,000? Thank you.
Councillor Kieran Dennison.
Mayor, just a quick question about the bring banks and the bottle banks in particular. And I just note that the tonnage of glass collected in July and August is down 110 tonnes on the same period last year. And consistently over the year, there has been a drop. I'm just wondering if there's any comment from the executive on that, or is that something that that is being seen in other council areas? And similarly, the textile banks are up very significantly as well. By contrast, the collection figure 45 tonnes in July versus 77 last year. So I'm just wondering if there's any comment on that.
Okay, and Councillor Evie Tormey.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report. My question's just in relation to the section on the local area plans, master plans and framework plans. I have asked before to get more detailed information in relation to this. We are definitely behind schedule in terms of delivery of these. My understanding is that the last one of the 8 hasn't even been started yet, and we had a big discussion at our Howth Malahide Area Committee about the need to progress the Howth Framework Plan, which was not within the top 8 of those. And so I just want to get some information in terms of the plan for that process, because I understand the planning department's plan is to have their multi-criteria analysis done again, but I think we need to have probably a realistic look at the situation of that list and look at what is actually deliverable and what's not, and where our priorities are then as a council going forward. Thank you.
Okay, that's all for the minute. A couple of words from me. I'm out and about all over the county in so many places. I could speak for half an hour here, but I want to acknowledge all the work of the council staff, like Jimmy Kieran said. Particularly, I was over in Howth yesterday, Hartstown and all sorts of places, attending small and big events. And I'm more and more impressed with the super work that everyone does, from whoever's emptying the bin all the way up to the chief executive. It's all part of the one team. And it's great to see, and I want to publicly acknowledge them and the effort they do, and they work out of hours and all sorts of days and times. I attended 2 events with Minister Brown and the Chief Executive here and others on land that we bought in Skerries and in Balbriggan, and Councillor Boland isn't here, but we bought land, the County Council bought land in Skerries many years ago, and people were saying, well, why do we buy that land? Sure, no one's ever going to build there. Well, we're building on it now. And the same in Balbriggan, where there's Castlelands Estate, and I think Grania Maguire's mother might have been involved in that way, way back. And here we are, we're building on it. And why am I talking about it? Because we need to buy land. And I don't know if we can, but we need to continue buying land and planning way ahead, not for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years and the 15 years. and acquire more land to build homes. So I'm looking forward to more progress on that. I won't say a lot on the Section 28 letter, except that I would like to see land developed that's ready to go to get diggers in there in 2027 and build homes. And if there's land out there like that, I'd like to see it actioned. We'll have to see how we get on with the process, and we'll go to the briefings and see what's happening. Anyway, going back to the Chief Executive, she's a very long list of questions now to deal with. Thank you.
Thanks, members and mayors and members. I completely share your view in terms of our events over the summer period. They were really successful, culminating in Howth over the weekend. And poor weather, I suppose, and long hours is not something new for the events team. So just to say, we appreciate the level of activity they have to undertake, particularly from June to September. And I'll certainly pass on your thanks to them. To Councillor Redwood and international protection, I suppose Ukraine or other countries, we take and implement policy from government, so we don't have any discretion beyond that, and we implement the plans that they require us to implement if it is our responsibility. So for Ukraine, we had a distinct responsibility, less so for other international protection applicants who they are the responsibility of a government department. But again, in terms of our integration work and the other work of our teams, we do a lot of work to support arrivals into our county, but it doesn't always extend to accommodation. That accommodation piece resting with government and the government department. Just generally on Fort Lawn, and I think Mr. Carroll will come in with more details, but it's not unusual for us to look to get the best use of our housing land. And to the Mayor's point just now, housing land is a valuable resource. It's not also unusual for us to work with tenants in terms of their accommodation needs, and for us to reach agreement with tenants for them to be reaccommodated elsewhere. A number of members mentioned downsizing and other initiatives. That's just symptomatic of the work we do with our tenants to make sure that the accommodation they have meets their needs, but also that we can plan best use of our housing stock. So if there were issues, and to Councillor Quinlan's contribution, our housing team work very directly and closely with our tenants when we are looking for change. Change sometimes takes time to, I suppose, explain and to reach agreement on. But I wouldn't accept any criticism of our staff in that space. They're very good in terms of, and go well above and beyond in their work with our tenants. So again, I'll let Mr. Carroll come in on the detail, but just that high-level principle should be understood in terms of use of our housing land and in dealing directly with our tenants in terms of their needs, but also, I suppose, the most efficient use of our housing stock. Again, for Mr. Carroll to come in on that. A number of comments in terms of progress with the MARA application, active travel and other things, so just take them as accepted and they'll be passed on to staff. On CCT provision, it's not long since that legislative change allowed us progress a number of schemes, so I know the cross-departmental team have moved apace. So CCTV and the likes of Meekstown Playground, I understood that's being implemented, but Vanessa may come in with the further detail. But you can see the huge cost of it, just in terms of that contract. But we do have to protect our assets, and that includes our playgrounds and parks. So we will move where we can, and Mr. Story may come in with further plans for those little black spots. On the car parks in Balbriggan, I understand those works are complete, but we were just given a little opportunity for the landscaping to mature. So we can expect those car parks to open in the coming weeks. On the eco toilets and beaches, I mean, we have rolled out quite a lot of toilets across the county, on beaches and in other places. So our programme is largely complete. And we will, if you want to bring any gaps to our attention, but I suppose from the time of COVID, we look to roll out that programme, and I think we've done quite well in relation to it. On the traffic lights at Stephenstown School, obviously we will look, and I'm sure the staff are liaising with the ESB to get that connection as quickly as possible. We'll have to come back to you on that removal of that hedgerow, Councillor Quinn. On the sensory facilities at events, just to say we've accepted they're necessary at all our events, and we're trying to roll out a good programme, but very much appreciate the team of the local volunteers in Howth who assisted greatly with that over the weekend. The childcare crisis, the point is well made, and again, a lot of work happening there by other agencies, but we're assisting where we can. And in terms of having planning obligations met, we'll continue to work with that through enforcement. To Councillor Birchall's point about uncoffin burials, that's something I think we probably need to take away and do some more research on, and if changes are necessary to the bylaws, we will have to look at that, but it's just not a subject area I'm too familiar with, so we need to research that in terms of legislation and what's appropriate. I think the point about the drones policy that was published in August relates to that policy. It's not connected to planning, that's the government policy published. I think the point is simply made. It doesn't cover off noise as it applies. So again, a number of issues arising there across the county that we're well aware of. I think that covers most of the detail. And maybe just to acknowledge Hartstown Community Centre, as the Mayor mentioned it, that was a community centre we didn't own 2.5 years ago. We did take it into the council's ownership and have completed the upgrade works which protected childcare in that area in terms of making sure the creche could remain open. So just to congratulate staff on that work. I think it shows the benefit of upgrades to community centres and the type of facility you end up with in terms of the standard of work in those areas. I'll maybe start with Mr. Story, who will take his items.
Thanks, Chief Exec. Members, just in relation to CCTV provision and litter management and waste. Obviously, the members are aware that we've recently approved, you have approved the new litter management plan. As a commitment to increase resources for litter wardens to 8 across the county, with a winter and summer schedule to include weekend cover. Part of the plan also includes CCTV. So CCTV has been approved for 4 locations that that deal with litter, and then 3 locations that deal with large-scale waste. So that's 7 locations to date. There's extra funding provided also, there'll be funding provided in the 2026 budget to cover off provision of CCTV at our bring banks and textile banks. So that's there, and obviously we go through the budgetary process and that's approved, that'll be rolled out. Just important for the members to consider that each time we want to put in CCTV, it goes to the Oversight Committee, which was recently set up. So it's not just a failure to complete. You have to make your case as to why you need that CCTV. And obviously, once we get approval, then we go off and then procure the CCTV. So there's money provided for in the litter management plan, and obviously under our waste policy that we're doing as well. We also are doing, members are probably aware, on the waste bylaws, the presentation bylaws, we've sent out letters to 4,000 residents in Fingal that don't have a waste service, and we're following that up at the moment as well. So we've asked them to tell us where their waste is being provided, there's inspections going on, and where there's not a waste collection in place, we can obviously issue fines in relation to that. So there's a lot of work going on in that area. In relation to the dog warden service, I know Councillor Bryan has raised this a couple of times. Over the last number of years, we had a situation where we had 2 dog wardens. We now have 8 in the whole county. That includes 2 additional that were provided this year with extra funding from the government, and hopefully that funding is in place next year. There is a road in relation to obviously our parks and our dogs going out to those locations. It is difficult, obviously, to deal with all the complaints in relation to dogs at different locations, because our dog wardens can be at
different locations across the county. But we have seen a very a big improvement in the service. It's just obviously there's a lot of dogs in the county that you're trying to cover. So we reckon there's somewhere 50 to 60,000 dogs in the county. So you're trying to cover that service across the whole county. Just in relation to the drones and the comment that was put into the Chief Exec's report, we're going to seek further clarification from the department in relation to that. Obviously, we don't see a situation where it states in relation to functions for local authorities, so we're going to see clarification on that. Bring banks and bottle banks tonnages. So we always, during the summer, generally see a reduction in bottle bank tonnages, and then it increases again for the winter months, so we expect that to happen. And just in relation to textiles, and there's generally a problem in the market of selling on clothing into other European markets, and we're now in a situation where we're going out to a tender to see can we obviously get a supplier for those goods or so for those materials, and then obviously we may see a reduction, but that is a problem that's across the region at the moment. It's not just in Fingal. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Just a few issues there. Just in relation to the question there from Councillor Gearan, so the review of the adopted development plan against the requirement of the new housing growth guidelines will provide details on all zone land banks, including the 2 strategic land banks at Lissenhall and Dunsink. Just the old schoolhouse there, as Councillor Walsh correctly points out, we've received a huge number of submissions on it, over 200. So the team are working their way down through that at the minute, and we'll prepare reports and bring that back to the elected members, noting his comments there just in relation to the community use of the protected structure itself. There was a number of queries just in relation to the car parks in Balbriggan. I'll come back to all the elected members just with a date for when they open, and we appreciate the positive comments just about how they currently look at the minute in their completed state, but just clarify when exactly they're due to open. And a query there on the CCT at Lanesborough as well. I'll come back and confirm just if there's what the delay is in them becoming operational. And I think the last one for me was just in relation to the Hoth Framework Plan and that multi-criteria list. So that was originally agreed through the SPC. So like that would be something we can refresh back through the SPC just to make sure that the multi-criteria is relevant and up to date, and then obviously then bring the second batch, if you like, through the SPC and back to full council.
In relation to Fort Lawn, what we committed to do earlier on in the summer was to reassess the plans and to re-engage with the residents. We had one meeting with them during August. We're going to be reaching out to them again shortly to have more consultation with them. And in parallel to that, then we're looking at what's possible in terms of the design of the scheme. We do have to work within the planning policy and within the scope of what the requirements of the Department of Housing are in terms of funding approvals. So we'll work within those confines, and we'll keep working and engaging with the tenants to see if we can bring them on board with us. I suppose the only point I would make on that is that it's since 2023 we have right-sized 62 people throughout our own housing stock. So moving people around within our own housing stock is not that unusual, and it's a core and fundamental duty, I think, of us as a housing authority to be able to do that. Right next door to us, we demolished 12 council homes, and we're currently building 36 high-quality new council homes for 36 families to live there, moving in next year, hopefully. So we'll continue to work with the councillors, with the community and with the residents there to achieve an acceptable solution there within, as I say, the financial planning constraints that we're operating within. And in relation to the tenant in situ and the €6 million funding that we've allocated, that hasn't been assigned yet. We're still, we only received notification that last week, and we're just confirming the exact requirements that the department has imposed on that funding to see where exactly and the timing that funding can be drawn down. But we understand it to be for a rollover of the scheme into purchases that are going to close in 2026 across tenants in situ and the other two schemes that fall under the second-hand acquisitions scheme.
Thanks, Mayor. Members, just first of all to acknowledge the comments of members about the events programme and the staff of the events unit. The compliments are very much appreciated, and I'll certainly pass them on. Councillor Shovlin, you asked about the ORIS application and the particular one around the canal. It's for a feasibility study to understand what's needed to develop water activities in the area west of the Callahan Bridge in Clonsilla. There's a model on the Grand Canal between Portobello and the Kylemore Road in the city, and we're looking to do something, if it's feasible to do something similar. But I'm happy to talk to you or any members about any of the ORIS applications that were recently announced for funding. Councillor Humphreys, just on Pride, we're aiming to have Pride in the Pride event in June next year, and work more closely with the Fingal Pride organisations rather than the City Pride organisations, who would have been directing us towards this time of year. So we are aiming for June next year. Thanks.
I'm just coming back in relation to the CCTV in Lanesborough. You probably see from the playground, we did also put in widen the path in the centre and also add public lighting. That delayed us slightly. Our timing was pretty off, to be honest with you. We're very disappointed. It was a deliberate attempt to burn the playground. There's no doubt about that. And we would expect the CCTV to be in and in use in the next few weeks. So hopefully this won't occur again. But we would ask members of the public, if they do see anything, to contact Gardaí. It would have taken a considerable amount of time for that to burn. And unfortunately, it's completely useless, and it'll have to be completely replaced. So it's, we are saddened, and we have had incidents of that, and we'd like that to stop. In relation to the burials, I will speak to my colleagues in the burial section to see what we can do to facilitate in Kellystown. I am aware there have been some questions on it, and we'll tease that out. And then again, ESB tend to be a little slow sometimes, so we'll chase up on that, and we'll try and get those signals sorted as soon as we can. Thanks.
Okay. Chief Executive's report noted. I'm going to move on to Mayor's business number 25. So this is a request: a civic reception. Dublin Ladies GAA football team that this council hosts a civic reception for the Dublin Ladies GAA All-Ireland winning football team in recognition of their recent agreements. Can someone propose that? Councillor Walsh and Tom Kitt seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. I'll go on to the, sorry?
We've had receptions here before, and councillors will stay back, and then you'll get the team lining up behind us, and it's just all a bit flat. When we bring them in, could we maybe stand outside, or because to me it seems a bit of a box ticking exercise.
Okay.
So it'd be nice to kind of do something a little bit different. And,
all right. We can review that and discuss it and look at it. Right, Grant, thank you. So I'm going to go to 26. And this is for noting conference report A to, where am I, D, noted. And then correspondence 27, A to K, noted. Departmental correspondence 28, A and B, noted. And then we're going on to motions. at last. So the first one up we have is 29, Councillor Angela Donnelly, Medical Priority Process Housing Supports, proposed by Councillor Donnelly, seconded by Councillor Breda Hannafy.
Thanks a lot. It's great to get to the motions. This has been on the agenda for quite some time. Medical priority, I think, and queries around medical priority is something that we all deal with often. And I note from the response that there has been changes to the system. One of these is the introduction of a HMD form in 2022, which has allowed for more efficient screening and processing of applicants. Just a few questions on that. The screening of applications, additional admin and medical resources have been allocated. I'd like to know what additional resources have been allocated, and have you any information on exactly what this means? How often does the medical committee meet? How often did it meet previously? Can we arrange for this committee, the medical priority committee, to meet more often? Basically, I suppose I want some tangible answers. The information given wasn't very clear. We all have people coming to us who have sought medical priority out of pure desperation, hoping that the genuine condition they have might result in them getting accommodation sooner rather than later. While the presentation was given earlier in the year, there were 476 applicants with medical priority registered. The HMD form was introduced in 2022, and you can see that there has been some success by using the form. The response given to applicants, in my opinion, to a lot of medical priority requests is it's not good enough, it's insufficient. The following is a response to a resident in Dublin 15, and the reason I'm quoting this is because I think it adds to the timeline, it adds to the work of the staff dealing with these requests. So the response was, after a detailed review, we regret to inform you at this time you are not being considered for accommodation on exceptional medical grounds. This decision is based on the assessment of your medical documentation in line with the housing allocation scheme. So after waiting 11 months for a response, this is the extent of the information people receive. If applicants aren't given more information as to why they've been unsuccessful, they're obviously going to appeal. This results in more staff resources being used to deal with those appeals. So I just think we could do this better and save everybody a lot of work and save our residents a lot of heartache and stress. Thank you.
Okay, and just note, Councillor Brendan Ryan is here, so I'm likely to go to 32 after this, John, or your motion. Anyway, we'll see. So next up we have Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Just to support Councillor Donnelly's motion, while 60 applications a month seems like quite a lot, I mean, anyone who works in the medical sector or has ever sat on an MDT, 60 per month isn't that extraordinary in terms of having full case conferences and actual discussions around a case, and it just beggars belief that 2 years is the timelines. Now, I'm not cognizant to the staffing, the qualifications of the staff, what process they go through, whether they sit round table or whether they look at as individuals, which will obviously make the process longer. But I do think there should be more oversight of the process in terms of, depending on the issue that a person is saying that they are needing medical priority, that the relevant expertise sit around together at a round table rather than individuals respond and then the application is put together like a planning application. Each department responds, like, to understand more thoroughly how the process actually happens and how the medical welfare officers and team actually carry out the process would be very beneficial, because as Councillor Donnelly said, a few residents would have got back to us about appealing it, and I've often read reports from psychologists, medical professionals, neurologists and other teams, and say to myself, well, this doesn't require much food for thought. It's quite relevant from an occupational therapist along with the other medical personnel that this is a relevant application, and still it takes 2 years. So my point being is, do we have sight of the process in which why it's so cumbersome? Because there's lots of waiting lists across this country, but 60 applications a month is 2 a day. It's not an extraordinarily large amount compared to some of the cases in terms of medical intervention and conversations that we're having across this country on a daily basis, unless there's one person allocated that solely. If that is the case, then I can understand the delays, but if there's a team of people that feed into it, that would just more clarity. Thank you.
Okay, and sorry, Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Donnelly for bringing forward the motion, and I support it. I mean, the process, I've had a lot of feedback that the process is extremely slow and cumbersome, and I think inadvertently that's causing quite a lot of hardship. And I appreciate that obviously, you know, the system's under a lot of pressure. There's a significant significant pressures on the housing department. I was told though that where applications are going to the Medical Welfare Committee, that can only meet once a month. So I'm just checking if that's still the situation, or if it's meeting more frequently. It seems to me that a monthly meeting, a monthly meeting may not be enough. Is it an issue? I appreciate that the reply says that additional resources have been provided, which is very welcome. But are applications being delayed due to lack of staffing, or is there a problem with assembling external experts? Is it that expertise is needed externally, which is slow to come in? But certainly, I think we need I suppose, a stronger focus on getting this right, because people are either not getting, people are waiting up to 2 years for accommodation based on medical priority. They would almost certainly get, or in some cases not getting it at all. So yeah, it'd be good to get an update on that.
Councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Donnelly, for bringing forward this motion. Could you give some clarity over your answer in the report where applicants are screened before going to the Medical Welfare Committee? It just strikes me as a bit odd that is that screening done by someone with medical background? Are they screening is it a GP's letter, therefore we're not going to count that, we're only going to count letters above a GP level, as some people think? Can you give some clarity around that? Because I would have concerns about someone that's non-medical looking at applications and making the decision before it goes to a welfare committee. Thank you.
Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to come in to support the motion. Good few of the points I wanted to make have already been made. I think the theme is around transparency here and people having a better oversight or better knowledge of what they're actually being put through. I've kind of sat on both sides of this, having written reports for HMD1 forms, and I don't think it needs to necessarily be a medic at all times to do this. Some of the cases I've dealt with have just been open and shut. There shouldn't need to be a committee of 4 or 5 people or whoever many to really go through this. They should just be streamlined at that time of screening. So I would love to know more about the process in depth and some oversight of it. A point I'd like to make when people even get through it, I am concerned of cases that have been brought to my attention of people who have been given medical priority, who are aware of houses that meet their needs and are quite high up on the priority list and are being overlooked for these houses. I have one case in particular I'm quite concerned about, where the person knew that it met their needs, but they weren't on our system as requiring that house or a house of that style or adaptation. So yeah, I'll bring that up in person for that one person, but I am concerned about the lack of transparency here, and I hope that this will bring some answer some of the questions we put there.
And Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Very much support the motion. It just everything else has been said there, but just to raise the fact that it's quite difficult in some cases to get on to actually get the HMD forms filled in by 2 doctors. We have places around Fingal where there is a lack of, probably everywhere in Fingal, where there's a lack of doctor surgeries, and they're overrun, and they're actually refusing to fill out the forms in some cases. In serious cases, I had one coming through the office where they had an Iraqi refugee that had come over here and had got asylum and was finding it very difficult to get a doctor to sign off a HMD form, when it was plain and simple right in front of me from letters from consultants in the Mater Hospital that he should be on a medical priority. But because he couldn't get the doctor to take the time out to fill out the form, and I think that we need to be looking at these particular cases And there is, of course, people that are applying for medical priority that unfortunately don't fit the criteria, and that has had an effect on the waiting times. But there is also people that are not even getting to that stage because of a lack of doctors, surgeries, and services. Thank you.
Okay, go back to the manager or Paul Carroll for comment. But before that, I'd just like to say I support the motion, and it would be great if we could cut the 2-year timeline in whatever manner. I don't know. Okay, we're back to Paul Carroll. Thank you.
Thanks. In relation to the process, so there was a very detailed presentation given at the SPC. We'd be happy to return either to the SPC or for another type of briefing on this to address any specific queries that people have, if that's something that people felt would be useful. In relation to the additional resources, we've recently engaged a second doctor, which has effectively doubled the capacity of the process to deal with that. And they're supported by a team of people within our housing department who undertake a screening process which looks at things from a non-clinical perspective where that's possible. Where there's a clinical decision needed to be made, that'll be then referred to somebody with the appropriate expertise. In terms of the results of the assessment that was mentioned and the kind of vague nature of the results, I can definitely investigate that to see if further information is possible, because I think that's a valid kind of point that if we're at liberty to, feed back that type of information, I don't see why we wouldn't, but I can ascertain that for sure. And if there's particular cases that you're mentioning in terms of properties being available and particular applicants, definitely if you provide me with specific details, happy to follow those up for each individual case. So to summarise, there's a lot of detailed questions have come in there on that. Probably a detailed presentation based on the previous presentation, but maybe more focused on the issues that have been raised tonight. Be happy to arrange that either via the chair of the Housing SPC or via another forum.
Okay, just to understand that last statement, would that be kind of an offer of a briefing for everyone to contribute as well as the Housing SPC? Is that what you're suggesting here? Yes. Okay, we'll go back to the proposal, the motion, and for response. And if you want to put it to the floor, then whatever. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the response. And I got a copy of the last briefing that went to the Housing SPC. And I'm sure the actual briefing and the being able to ask questions and have them answered was very beneficial. But the presentation that I got, it really didn't give us that much information. It was 9 pages long, and the whole forms, all the forms were put in it, so it took up an awful lot of space. I do think it would be very beneficial to do a review. I'm not looking to give anybody any extra work. I do think that across the whole housing section, I think more information to people when they're being given information about whether they qualify for social housing, when they've been knocked off the housing list. I think the more information you give people, the better, because then at least they know what they're dealing with, they know what they have to appeal, they know what to say and what's being looked for. Just going off case slightly, I have a family that's 19 years on the housing list that were told their income exceeded the threshold. Now, they put in an appeal about 4 months ago. They've heard nothing, not even a phone call to try and get some clarity from them, for them. So I just think a little bit of communication would go a long way with constituents. So I'd like to have the motion agreed, please.
Okay, is the motion agreed? Agreed. Okay, we'll go on to the next motion. Councillor Owen O'Brien. So proposed by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Cameron Mac. Sorry.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just note that report. Thanks very much.
Report noted. We'll go on to the next motion. As Councillor Brennan Ryan isn't here, I'm proposing to send that on to the next meeting. And we go on to number 32, Councillor John Burchell, short-term letting enforcement. Proposed by Councillor Burchell, seconded by Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Manager. The context of my motion is the chronic housing crisis, which we're all aware of. The result of the deliberate and systematic commodification of housing over many years. So we now have the perverse absurdity of many families living in hotels, while thousands of tourists flock in to stay in what should be family homes. I'm aware of one family of 10, 2 parents and 8 children, evicted from private rented accommodation, found it impossible to find another rental and are now sharing a single room in an emergency accommodation hotel. Noting in the report that 68 warning letters have been issued in the 6 years since 2019, which comes to an average about 11 or so letters per year, which seems very low in the context of the numbers of advertised short-term lets. For example, looking at some of the popular sites yesterday, I found 40 full houses or apartments to be let in the Dublin 15 area. So I don't think we can really depend on the public to notify the council on alleged breaches of planning in these cases. How would an individual, for example, monitor the number of nights a principal private residence has been let in a year, for example? So we really need less dependence on the public and more enforcement from state bodies, including the council. Could the manager provide some more detail on the investigations it conducts? For example, how do we determine that a property is indeed a principal private residence? Are there cross-checks done against the LPT database in Fingal and other councils? How would we know if someone claimed a property as a principal private residence for short-term letting purposes, but was in fact habitually living somewhere else? In early May, the journalist at the Ditch revealed that Brendan McDonough, the would-be housing czar's Cabra home, was being advertised on a short-term letting site for the incredible price of €10,200 per week. McDonough is the current head of NAMA, a deeply secretive state body which played a key role in bringing in the vulture funds to exploit the aftermath of the bank bailout. NAMA amounted to another bailout of the banks and speculative property interests, which took place behind carefully closed doors. McDonough isn't an anomaly among our public servants or elected reps, as several other Ditch articles have revealed. So not only is our political establishment ideologically wedded to the housing provision for maximum profit model, but very senior officials within the state's apparatus are personally benefiting from the extreme commodification of housing. What hope do ordinary families have of putting a secure and affordable roof over their heads in such a toxic and exploitative environment?
Okay, time. Thank you. So we go to the manager for a reply.
Thanks, Mayor.
Popped up late after. Anyway, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to thank John for raising this important motion. I raised a similar question, I think it was back in January, where I asked how many people had applied for permission for short-term lets. I can't remember, I was just trying to look for it there, the exact number, but it was a very small number of people who had applied for the plan permission, and it had bared no relation to what was on the short-term letting websites. So we all know that there is a massive issue, as John has already outlined. We have people living in hotels and people holidaying in what should be people's homes. So look, the world is upside down. I don't think that we are doing nearly enough. I'm not saying it's anyone in this room's fault, whether it's the resources, but we need to act and behave as if it was ourselves or one of our loved ones that was in a situation where they couldn't find somewhere to live. That's the level of urgency we need from this council. So I would implore you to do more to deal with this issue. Thanks.
So, Councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and also thank you for trying to facilitate getting to my motion, but unfortunately we won't. Considering the invitation has been sitting there since the 27th of May, perhaps you'd agree to bring it forward as a heading item at the next meeting, the nominating of 2 people to the working group for the looking at a hotel levy. which has been an invitation sitting there since the 27th of May. On Councillor Burchill's motion, I commend him for bringing it forward. I 100% support it. I think it's at the height of irony that Fáilte Ireland was chosen to be the body to enforce the short-term nest regulations and the Airbnb regulations. This is an organisation that is sole focus is to promote tourism into an area, is now being asked to monitor it. Fáilte Ireland doesn't have any planning powers, it doesn't have any enforcement powers, and it should have been the role of the council, and funding should have been given to the council to pursue this rather than Fáilte Ireland that has a separate mandate and has absolutely no planning or enforcement powers, as I previously said. Thank you.
Right, can we extend the meeting back to finish this motion only by 5 or 10 minutes maybe? I know we're all getting tired, but anyway. Councillor David Healy.
And I'd like to thank Councillor Burchill for bringing this up. I think maybe it's something that might be worth a longer discussion at the Planning SPC. I appreciate we're coming to the end of the meeting this evening. I don't think, given that Fáilte Ireland's responsibility has not yet been handed over to them, and it's still our job, I don't think we should slacken off. I would be interested in knowing, exactly what happened between 2019 and 23, and then where it appears was a period of time when we only reacted to complaints, and 23 we actually started, to check things out ourselves. So I assume most of the 68 actually are from the last 2 years. I'd like to know if that's continuing, and also what the approach is. I mean, assigning somebody in the planning department to check the websites manually doesn't seem like a good use of resources, and I hope that's not what we're doing, when you could have a computer checking for us and telling us, okay, the 90 days has been exceeded for such and such a site, for a particular location, and I'd be interested to know if that's what we were doing, because the information is public. It's going up on a website, and so enforcement should be straightforward if we can put the right technology in place to gather the data. Thank you.
Okay, so it goes to manager now for a reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, look, as set out in the report there, apologies. As set out in the report there, we are proactive in this space. I'm happy to bring a more detailed report back to the SPC in terms of when the 68 warning letters were issued. We don't have the technology. It is a manual process, and it is labour intensive. But that's the legislation that we've been given. We can talk to our IT department to see if there's a piece of software that can be put in place to speed that process up. But at the minute, it's very labour intensive. I suppose the most effective tool that we have is the issuing of the warning letters, because it gives people an opportunity to respond to that, and as you can see there from the stats, that has resulted in successful outcomes to the council. I understand that the bill itself, which does seem to me to be something that will address this, certainly in terms of putting the information out into the public realm. I understand that the timeline for that is the middle of next year, but I disagree that we have slacked off or are awaiting that to be signed into law, as we do continue to be proactive in this space.
Okay, back to the proposer of the motion.
Thanks for the response there. We've 15,000 people now homeless, including 5,000 children. In the past week, 2 families with severely ill children have contacted me who received notice of termination months ago and are unable to find any alternative rented housing. They're facing into emergency accommodation with those severely ill children. It's intolerable. It's just intolerable. The consequences of this social vandalism falls into the laps of the councils, as housing is under our remit. So business as usual isn't an option, and we need to take meaningful action here in this area and many others. A couple of months ago, the Spanish city councils moved to remove 65,000 Airbnb listings as part of a general crackdown on the sector, which is contributing to the housing crisis there. That's the kind of meaningful action we need here to drive out the profiteers and let people back into family homes. Thanks. I'll ask that the motion is agreed.
Agreed. Motion's agreed. Okay? Yes? Okay, that concludes the meeting. Yes?
Please.
Okay, proposed by yourself and seconded by Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
42. Yes, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'd accept mine. 44, I think.
44, proposed by yourself and seconded by Dean Mulligan. 44. Yeah. Proposed by and seconded by Dean Mulligan. We all right now?